Let's do the damn thing.
Oh, you know what time it is. It's time to take it to the Birdland. It's about to go down. Hope you all ready. Yeah, let's go. Come and roll with me to the Birdland. Friends got to giving you the word, man. Any other BS is absurd, man. Sports talking, they give it to you firsthand. They can talk Terps, they can talk O's. Yeah, they both lit. That's how it goes. Baltimore squad, Ravens and Poe. Better tune in. Here gonna show. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS. Birdland, Birdland, Birdland. BS.
It's all about that BS, baby.
What's up, BSers?
What's up, peeps? Got a full house tonight. We haven't had this in several weeks now.
It's nice to finally all be back together like one happy family.
Welcome back, Fred.
We got Fred. We got Scott. We got James. James in the studio tonight. Welcome back, my friend. Good to have you here, guys. Drew over on the casting couch tonight, as always. Appreciate you being here, Drew. We got a lot to talk about on tonight's show, man. The Ravens close out the preseason. Perfect. 3-0. What's new? You know, what does it matter? We'll talk about it. But the talk right now, the 53-man cutdowns came today as the team starts to finalize their roster heading into week one.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because also we're going to make our predictions for the season, guys. We gave you our predictions, and James is calling me out on some crap. We'll get to that later. But we're going to make our preseason predictions now that we're actually getting ready to start the season. Going to give you our annual predictions for the upcoming season and who's going to win it all at the end.
Yeah, man. We it seems like we're all on a similar trajectory with certain things, but we'll talk a little bit about it.
We'll just say maybe Chuck will be happy.
Yeah, right. Certain Chuck out there. The Orioles win a big series on the road in Houston. Still primed for a late season playoff push. And could some reinforcements be on the way sooner rather than later?
Yeah, and look, can't forget about them Terps. And
That's
obviously
right.
You haven't. We're going to talk about it later. A bunch of us going to the game as the Terps football team kicking off the season at home against Buffalo this Saturday. Stay tuned because we're excited to get into that.
And you know what? Before we start this week's show, I know you talked about it last week, and we've been talking about it for the last couple of weeks. We did our ESPN Fantasy Pick'em League. We put everything together. Get out there and sign up for it. If you haven't done it already, it's in the description below. Get your chance at a Birdland BS prize pack. Nothing crazy. It's going to be a shirt, maybe a hat, some stickers, a koozie, whatever.
But you also get bragging rights.
That's what I was going to say. More importantly, you get bragging rights to say you beat us at something.
And we did kind of tease last week. Drew and I teased. We might have to have, if they're going to have bragging rights, they got to be able to do it on air.
Right.
We're going to figure out a way to give them time if y'all can actually beat us.
If you've never done a Pick'em League before, it's a lot of fun. It's free to join, free to sign up. It's not like fantasy football or anything. There's not a whole lot of brain work that goes into it.
And this is a confidence league, too, for those of you who may have done it before. So you pick and you say, how confident am I in this game, right? If you think it's a lock game, you put that as a number 1. If you're not sure on that game,
other way around. You're risking amount of points. So
that's right.
If it's a high probability of a win, you put 16 on
you're
that.
You're wagering points, basically.
Exactly. So it's a lot of fun.
I will say, go on there. Like, don't kind of wait till like the Thursday night before the first Thursday night game, because when I did it, it was a little hard. Like, it was kind of hard to figure out at first because like you click the Bills and Rams matchup, you put Bills, and I want to change the points, it would say I put it on 7, it dropped it down and it kind of messed the order up again.
Yeah,
it's kind of like you almost have to just go ahead and pick all your teams and then do the
so also to that point, somebody had brought up a good point to this earlier. Make sure you set a reminder. Set a reminder in your phone for Wednesday evenings just to go in there and set your picks and your confidence points and all that stuff. Because if you miss 1 week or you miss one game, it can really screw up the scoring system. And we want you to beat us. All of us are in there. We want you to beat us. And like I said, we got a cool prize pack in store for it. So.
I mean, some of you are used to being beaten more than others, but
Mr. Two-Time. That's all I'm going to say. I mean, that might be fantasy football.
But again, go check out that link like Fred said. Check out, we got a link in there, and the password is Birdland BS with a capital B and a capital BS at the end. If you can't get in, shoot one of us a message. We'll get you in there.
And before we get started tonight, man, Scott, give a shout out to our sponsor.
Yeah, obviously, guys, I don't know how many times we have to tell you about Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon. It's that team that used to be at MD Crash.
Every week. That's how many times. Every week.
They've been our partners for years now, literally years. So, look, they've expanded. They've got more lawyers. They're still handling all those accidents and injuries and everything. But if you're, if if you're accused of rape, if you are accused of murder. Is it
harsh.
too early for that
I
one?
hope we don't have any rapists watching our show.
Ryan
No,
really take these reads to like the max.
I take the news, okay? What do you want me to do? All right? But no, this team, they're great, and they're knowledgeable. That's the thing. If you have questions, they can help answer them, and they can really help protect you, whatever it may be, family law, if it's civil court, if it is family court, or again, those criminal cases, they can help you out, and they respond to you quickly. Just call or text them, 667-220-6500. Call or text them at any time. They'll get back to you ASAP. And again, that number is 667-220-6500. Call or text and get Bowers, Hassan, and Herndon on the case for you.
All right, fellas, it's time for some flock talk. And obviously, the big news of the day is the roster cutdowns, which we're absolutely going to get to because there's a lot to digest with that. But before we do, I do want to kind of talk about the last preseason game as the Ravens close out another win against the Commanders. As they go to 3-0 on the year. What are they, 23-0 now, I think? In the
if you can't
preseason.
see, I'm just twirling my fingers.
There's some level, I guess, of it's pretty impressive at 23 wins in a row.
We've talked about it at this point. The impressiveness is this shows the continued depth that this team continues to find in the free agent market, in the undrafted free agents, in the rookies they're drafting, right? The fact that you can continue to do this, and you got to figure this last preseason game especially, I mean, you had guys that were literally fighting for the last few roster spots here.
Yeah, you had guys literally that didn't make the team that ended up having pretty decent games and decent showings. That just goes to show you, to your point, how deep this team is. But it also goes to show, the level of competitiveness that runs within this organization, the coaching staff, the players, they want to win at everything they fucking do, right? In a preseason, regardless, and I know it doesn't mean anything come record time or come regular season, but at the end of the day, a win's a win, and they're going to look to win everything that they do. They're
like you said, they don't go out there to just find out. The only thing that we did learn over this past several weeks, and you weren't here when we talked about last week, was Harbaugh was a little upset.
Blend of Fred and Harbaugh in there. I don't know what happened.
Harbaugh was a little upset in that second preseason game that they didn't get to see the special teams as much. Obviously they did in this game a little bit more, but I think it just goes to show you that, yes, they're being competitive, but they have a job to do. And for them, that job is to find the best guys to field the best team that they can.
And like I said, they had a lot of tough decisions today when it came to roster cutdown day. But I think the player in this game that obviously stood out to not just me, I think it stood out to everybody because it was all over social media, both locally and nationally, is newly signed wide receiver DeMarcus Robinson shines in his debut. 4 catches, 135 yards, and a touchdown. And I think beyond the stats of it and what was, impressive in the numbers itself, that sluggo route that he ran for that opening touchdown was a thing of beauty. I mean, the corner looked terrible. He bit on the slant on the inside and then stuck it upfield on the go route.
Breaking ankles on a go route.
Good old Anthony Brown, too, to hit that, make the throw.
Absolutely. It's a great throw. It's just that. Listen, I know we try to say, let's have all the confidence in the world that we can in some of these young receivers that we have with Prochet and Duvernay and even Wallace. We haven't seen them get an opportunity yet. We want to see them get more chances. But I think adding a down-the-field threat was a missing piece to this offense. We talked about it. We never really replaced Hollywood Brown. And I'm not saying that DeMarcus Robinson is the replacement of Hollywood Brown, but that down-the-field explosive speed, that's what DeMarcus Robinson can give you. But the more impressive thing, again, was the route running on this. And that wasn't something that I really expected or knew much of DeMarcus Robinson. So if he's already got that ability, now pairing him with a guy like Keith Williams, who is a route tree expert, right, is only going to fine-tune his game anymore. I think it's a key addition to this core.
It could absolutely take Robinson's game to the next level, right? He's been behind a lot of guys in his career, right? And maybe hasn't gotten the touches. When you look at the stat sheet, he doesn't wow you off the stat sheet. But what he does do, and what we've heard, is that over the top speed, crisp and clean route running, and you got to remember, this was all done with the backup to the backup quarterback.
Right.
Right. This wasn't even your primary target.
Hopefully Robinson has better hands than Hollywood Brown.
That's
a great point.
So. We
great
hope so.
point.
This better not be Riddler 2.0. That's for
Right.
sure.
Exactly.
If it is, we're blaming Drew.
No one's taking that nickname. That's Hollywood's sole nickname.
But no, I mean, look, he looked good. Again, the 4 receptions for 135 yards. Again, it's for him. It's the yards after catch and getting open in open space. Like when he has open space, bye.
Exactly.
Adios, amigos. Like,
yeah. So the big question mark is, what is the rapport going to look like between Lamar and Robinson? Because I know a lot of people are saying, well, does this mean Demarcus Robinson slides in as the number 2 wide receiver right away? I don't necessarily think he slides in as the number 2 right away, but could he work there over time? Absolutely. He needs to get that chemistry with Lamar, and he needs to get more familiar with the book. I know they talked to him after the game, and he talked about like how different these play concepts are, and the scheming and everything is different. They gave him basically a handful of routes and a handful of plays that he was going to run in this game, and he utilized it and maximized the potential in each one of them, right? So, again, it's going to take him time to get involved more and more in this offense. But I think by maybe mid-season, he could be in the fight for that number 2 wide receiver.
Yeah, I mean,
spot.
even if you quote defined him as a number 2 wide receiver, I think we've seen and shown enough that. Mark Andrews is actually number 1, right? And Bateman is going to be number 2. It's
catcher of the football.
Yeah, exactly.
Receiver.
It's not even wide receiver anymore. But no, I think there's argument. He did put up a good game. I think there is a point to be made, right? And I know we're going to get into number 8 later.
Justice said, as long as he doesn't do a Lee Evans, man, that shit still hurts.
Yeah, it
if you're
does.
bringing it up this late, it definitely hurts.
But for me, I look at it and I really want to see, we don't know what goes on in the practice field, right? So we don't know what kind of chemistry they have. But not seeing Lamar at all in this preseason, not seeing what he's able to do, how that chemistry is developed with Bateman, how it's developed with Prochet and Duvernay on the field and in-game situations. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But for me, the biggest thing, when you're talking to Demarcus Robinson, I want to see it translate when you get the threat of number 8 in there.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's what we're all going to wait for. Week 1 gets the Jets. Maybe we'll see a little bit of Robinson in there. I hope to. Yeah. Because his team doesn't have a whole lot of options at wide receiver right now.
Well, I mean, we're going to find out when we hit that first snap. We're going to find out in 10 13 days, somewhere around in there.
Yeah.
10 days. We're going to find out if James owes us $100 a pop.
About Linderbaum?
Because the man...
James over there smiling like, damn, I was hoping they'd fucking forget.
I'm not worried about it.
But Linderbaum, I mean, he made his preseason debut.
He did.
He didn't play a lot of snaps. It was only 9-10 snaps.
Nope.
There were no bobbled balls.
No, and listen, the snaps were good. He held his zone. He had good footwork. He when you look at him, you do fear that he's going to get oversized, overmatched, and all that. But I'll tell you what, he knows how to use his weight. He knows how to use his power to his advantage, and he knows how to use his leverage, right? So in those 9 snaps that he did play, I didn't see any issues in a single snap.
They saw enough to take him out.
Very small sample size, but 2 thumbs up in his first, work. And obviously you're a little concerned with the foot and how's he going to look with, fear of putting any weight or fear of putting any pressure on it. Didn't seem to bother him a bit in this game, so that was good.
No.
Speaking of rookies, though, no Kyle Hamilton, no Isaiah Likely, no Travis Jones, obviously still dealing with the injury there. I know Kyle Hamilton, he's a little banged up, so that's why he wasn't suited up.
You need to save him for the season, too.
We've talked about for the last couple of weeks just how impressive Isaiah Likely has been, right? And I think we all kind of knew when none of us in here, being honest, knew who Isaiah Likely was prior to the draft, right? But once we figured out that he was a Raven and we started doing some homework on who this guy was, we started watching highlights. We're like, man, this guy could
we kept saying it.
This guy could really fit into this offensive system as a tight end, as a wide receiver, as both, however you want to use him. But to pick up on this offense as quickly as he has, to kind of realize some of the things that work in this offense, coming back to the football, finding open space, the things that I tell you that why Mark Andrews is so successful is his ability to find open space, his ability to get in Lamar's eyesight and be in his line and find him. you saw that with Isaiah Likely with the backup quarterbacks as well.
And part of that is the fact that he's willing to be physical at the line. He's willing to create separation, right? Just like Mark Andrews does.
Yeah.
And the fact that they were and this is why I kind of say, like, it's going to be interesting to see the chemistry between him and Lamar, too. With Likely is that they were running him a lot, especially in that second preseason game. He was going out of the slot.
Yeah.
So it just goes to show you, they're looking at this guy. They're looking at him as like a hybrid combo, and what we all thought Boykin was going to be.
Right.
Right? But he's clearly better on all fronts, blocking, getting open, being physical, going in high pointing the ball. We've seen that in camp, some of the videos of him high pointing the ball in the end zone. That's all the things that we kept saying. God, if Boykin would just do that. God, if Boykin would just do that. He'd be a great tight end if he could high point the ball.
Right.
Well, here we are.
Yeah.
That we've got a guy that seemingly can do both things.
Boykin's a thing of the past. Likely is definitely the future. And as impressed as we are as fans, obviously the team has been just as impressed because you have a 4th round rookie sitting out the last preseason game of the year. That's super impressive to me. I don't think I've ever seen that. I don't care how cautious the Ravens are trying to be with guys, but to not get him any work and you're like, yeah, I've seen enough. Like, he's good.
I mean, they saw enough. What was it? Halfway through that second preseason game.
Right.
They pulled him. They said, you're done.
Right.
Like, we've seen enough. You're not getting hurt because we plan on utilizing you.
Exactly. And that just goes to show, I think, his role is going to be bigger than we can even imagine in this offense. Like, it's for all those out there in fantasy land or dynasty fantasy lands that are picking up Isaiah Likely now, like, you're smart, forward thinking, because I think this guy's got a bright future ahead of him.
He's already taken
even
in our
with
dynasty.
an all-pro like Mark Andrews on this roster. I think he still has a very bright future.
If Mark Andrews is covered, who the hell do you think the ball's going to? It's
Exactly.
probably going to Likely. It's likely going to Likely.
Highly likely that it's going to Likely.
Yeah, exactly. How many times? What's the over/under on how many times we hear that during the season?
It's already all over social media. Every post is 80 likely. You see it all over.
It was
the place.
in the chat room last week, but I sat there thinking, I'm like, the commentary, every time there's a new commentary group, it's going to just be the theme.
Right.
Like every time the ball goes to him, or when he lines up. God, can you see Romo line it? Like, talking about it. It's highly likely. It's going to Likely.
Yeah, all the national guys will pick up on it every single week. But you talked about Lamar, right? And I wanted to ask you guys, and Drew, I'll start with you, right? So, obviously, we all know what happened with J.K. Dobbins, and if you could change history, we wouldn't have had J.K. Dobbins out there. He would have avoided the knee injury, and he might have had one of the best years a Ravens running back could have had in a long time, right? Because he was primed. He was ready to go. All of us were hyped. He was hyped for the year. But, it is what it is. So you get into this year where the team is trying to be more cautious and be more self-aware of not taking too many risks, not too many chances. You don't have Lamar Jackson take any snaps in a preseason game, not one drive, not one quarter, not one half. You don't have him do any. Is that a concern for you heading into week 1 at all?
I mean, I'm not going to say anything groundbreaking other than it really doesn't concern me because I think that's like a lot of quarterbacks are at this point, and like you just like you laid the groundwork, especially for this team. Like, but a lot of quarterbacks, it's kind of the norm now. Like, you're not. It'd be a different story if like this was some high price free agent.
Tom Brady was out there playing.
Yeah, because they gave him like 2 weeks off.
Okay,
you're like, no, you're going. I don't care.
He still played in a
45.
preseason game.
You're gonna have to get out there, but. Yeah, but for every little situation like that, there's other like Rodgers and other players. Not.
They were trying to make sure that his facelift didn't affect his
whatever was
ability.
going on with that dude. No, I'm not overly concerned. And same thing with like even the chemistry thing. Like, it's not like if he didn't play in a preseason game, he's like not in the buildings at all. Like they obviously are practicing, and he's been practicing with everyone this whole summer. So I'm nothing extra groundbreaking. I'm not concerned. It is what it is. I'd rather you get 0 snaps and maybe you show a little rust in week 1 than you rolled your ankle walking. Like, I mean, just trying to get away from a tackle, like not even taking off his normal way. And
right.
So no.
James, any concerns with Lamar not getting any snaps in the preseason at all?
Nah, just trying to look for his money.
Try to look for his money. Well, listen, it hasn't been completely about money, not at least playing time, because he's been at practice. He's been for every workout and all the training room sessions, all that stuff. So it's not about money when it comes to preseason snaps. This was an organizational decision. My question is to you, do you think that it affects Lamar's play not having any snaps in the preseason?
I don't think running-wise, but throwing-wise, I think he's going to be a little off in the beginning.
Okay.
I don't think he's going to be the clean pass to anybody open. It will get there, but I don't think it'll be where it should be. It will be in the area. But, this is what they want to do, and they're going to protect it. I'm all for it. Let's see what he can do when he gets out on the field.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this is, again, your franchise quarterback that you're trying to lock up for the next 5+ years, right? And that's a whole other topic in itself we'll talk about probably later. But I understand having the caution, right? But at the same time, like what Steve Smith said, you can't leave the Ferrari in the garage, right, and all that thing. Like, you got to at least get him some work. So I personally would have liked to have seen him out there for maybe a quarter, whether that was first game, second game, third game. But here's my caveat to that. If you're going to have him out there for a quarter or whatever it is, the first string offensive line needs to be out there to protect him, right? So you're putting not just him out there, you're putting everybody else out there with him. That would have just been that would have been my personal preference, but I understand why they didn't do it.
I get it. I guess my thing is you got to, after last year, I think it scares them, right?
Yeah,
I mean, look at all the preseason games. They limited a lot of guys. It wasn't just Lamar.
Miss you too, Garnett. Haven't seen you in a while, brother. Good to see you, man.
But it's one of those things that you have to. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. Right? Because God forbid what happened to J.K. last year happens to him in the one time that you get out there, regardless of whether it's the first line or not. Now, what are people saying?
Right.
So you know what he can do. You know what he's been doing in practice. You were bringing in, it came out today or yesterday or today, they were bringing in his quarterback coach again, which they were planning on doing the entire time. They brought him in the beginning. They're bringing him in at the end to make sure he's comfortable, make sure he's good to go. And that's all you can really ask for, because I get it. I don't think I would be willing to risk it. When you had, there's no biscuit if you don't risk it, or if you risk it, right? There's no chance for you to make it anywhere in the season if he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And after last year, you had not one, not two, but at least 3 starters on offense and defense.
LeBron James, not one, not two, not 3.
6.
22 goddamn players went to the IR after a while.
But I mean, you had 3
enough fingers and toes.
3 top tier starters at their positions go down.
Yeah.
Within the preseason, and it was really mostly within 1 to 3 days. So you can't risk that, and I get it. I am 100% fine with the decision. I think we know what Lamar can do, and I'm just excited to see him mesh with these guys. I think they've got him excited. I think a guy like Likely has him excited. I think he was itching to get out on the field. Because if you watch him on silent, he was sitting there a few times, but he was talking to like guys like Andrews. But then the rest of the time, you saw him. He had the visor flipped around, backwards, sideways.
Typical Lamar.
And
Got
he
the
was,
chain. Yeah.
But he was up there. He was cheering for his team.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
he's always been a team guy. Loves his guys.
Which is exactly why I don't think it changes anything.
Yeah.
I get the contract situation. Everybody's freaking out about that. But ultimately, this is a guy that is there for his team on and off the field, whether he's on it or not.
Go ahead, James.
Speaking of preseason and all that, it's great to see these guys out there, but I wish they would just leave the jewelry in the locker room, because my kids see that shit and they're like,
Hey, Dad, I need a chain.
I want a chain like that. So they're on Amazon. They're looking at all these chains and stuff like that. I'm like, you're not getting no chain like that, man. But they come out there with all this
Get him
gaudy.
one of these. Get him one of these Orioles chains.
Don't do that
Just
either.
put a Raven on.
$35 right there.
Cubic zirconian.
Yeah, so we bought one. I forget what it says, but it's already turning like color around the chain and all that. But they love it. But they got to stop wearing those chains out in the field.
That's funny.
Oh, man, that's hilarious.
Well, let's talk about these roster cutdowns that had to happen today by 4 p.m. There was, like I said, a lot of roster decisions that were going to be tough. I'm not going to go through every single one that was cut, so I think what we're going to do is just kind of highlight some key positions, highlight some key players that were cut. I'm going to start with the running back position because there's a lot of moving pieces here, right? I'll be honest with you. I was not impressed at all with the running back core in the preseason. Usually that's the one staple of this offense that you can hang your hat on. Even last year when we had, Tyson Williams and Nate McCrary and whoever the hell else we had, during the preseason at that time, even they were effective on the ground in the preseason. Guys who just got kind of thrown into the mix. You bring in, a vet like Mike Davis. You draft a guy like Tyler Beatty. And I expected this running back core to look better. There was a lot of hype around Justice Hill looking better than he did before the injury. There's all this talk. But I'll be honest with you, maybe it's just me. Maybe you guys have a difference in opinion on it. I was not impressed. I know that the offensive line was rotating around. Guys were coming in, second, third, fourth string, whatever. I get that. That's how it is every preseason. But there left something to be desired with this running back core that we had out there.
I agree with that, but I also would say that our vision is a little spoiled when it comes to Gus Edwards and J.K. Dobbins of what we've been expecting here recently out of running backs.
We haven't seen either one of them on the field in quite some time.
Agreed. I'm not debating that at all. I think there's the fact that Beatty, I think Beatty was a late round flyer that they figured they'd take him on, see what he can do. I think he's one of those guys that maybe wasn't as willing or voiced his frustration in some way, shape, or form with not really wanting to play special teams, right? Because they didn't really give him a whole lot of shot to be back there to catch returns or kick returns or punt returns, which that would have been the place that I think he would have made the team if he was going to make it, him and McCrary. But neither of them did. But we also, learned today, what did they do? They pulled in Kenyon Drake.
Yeah, so that's what I was trying to say. There's a lot of moving pieces with this. Obviously, JK's come back, but how much of JK are we going to see early on in the year? He's going to have to get acclimated to playing again, right? So as much as we know that JK, until Gus is fully healthy, he will probably be the bell cow of this of this backfield. But it won't happen for a while because, again, he's got to get his feet underneath him. He's got to show that he's fully healthy and he's fully back, and we haven't seen that yet. So there needed to be production beyond J.K. Dobbins. And like you said, Tyler Beatty just did not impress. He was a guy that I thought, playing against the SEC, he's battle tested. He gives somebody, he's a versatile back. He can catch the ball out of the backfield and run the ball. But you're right, to your point, when you're a 6th round draft pick, you have to show versatility and you have to show willingness. I don't know if he did or didn't.
I don't know. I'm guessing. I'm guessing at that.
But either way, you have to make your presence known on special teams if you really want to make a roster. 6th and 7th round picks, that's just how it is. It's part of the business. It's part of the way the NFL works, and it's damn sure how the Ravens work. And if you're comparing apples to apples, when you're looking at Tyler Beatty versus Justice Hill, that is the major advantage of Justice Hill over Tyler Beatty, was that not only could he run the ball probably just as effective as Tyler Beatty, because, again, he didn't impress me running the ball that much,
right,
but he is a superior special teams ace, right? He is a very good special teams player, and that's crucial to this team. So you only got so many positions.
Which speaks loads, because this is a team that, we joke around about it, but how often do we actually see a big special teams mistake?
Right.
We don't. And when we do,
it stands out.
It stands out, and you're in Harbaugh's doghouse.
Oh, of course.
We know that.
Right.
And that's the thing, is that some of these guys, if you're not willing, Harbaugh specifically said, easiest way to get our attention and potentially get on this roster is come to the coaches and say, where's the special teams room?
Right.
And I don't know. We don't know, but it just, the fact that he didn't get a lot of chances.
Right.
Maybe that was a message to all those guys and seeing who did.
Right.
Who did come out, right? Because they're going to listen to their coach. They're going to listen to the media a little bit. It's your first year. You're going to listen. You're going to take it all in. But I have a feeling some of these guys maybe didn't take the advice that they were given, or they weren't capitalizing on the spots they were given during practice.
Like I said, it comes down to a numbers game, right? When you look at the roster and the way it's been constructed since Greg Roman's been here, they typically only carry 3 actual running backs, because you got to remember, Ravens are one of the only teams that carry a fullback, and let's not forget they've got an all-pro fullback in
Card.
Pat Ricard, guys. But So that leaves you 3 spots, right? And you know J.K. Dobbins is going to be taking up one of those spots. Healthy or not, he's going to be on the 53 as of right now. So that leaves you 2 spots. You brought in a veteran like Mike Davis, who is kind of a north-south bruising type back, right? He's a change of pace back.
Pretty good at pass protection.
Pretty good at pass protection, right? Yeah. And you got so you got those 2 guys locked up. So you're literally down to 1 position with all these running backs. And again, not one really stood out more than the other to me.
So you go with what you know.
And you wait and see who's cut. You see who's released. And that brings us to the next guy. Kenyon Drake has flown into Baltimore this morning. Sounds like everything is progressing towards a deal pending a physical.
It went seamlessly was the wording being put out there.
It went good. Drew, I know you're a Kenyon Drake fan. I know you're not a fan, but I guess you've drafted him in fantasy before. I remember him. You don't like Kenyon Drake. Okay.
Opposite.
Maybe that's why it sticks out to me. I remember your name and Kenyon Drake sticking together. Do you not like Kenyon Drake in this offense?
Maybe I don't know what I did last year. Last year maybe it was I don't really like it. I don't. It's hard to not say bringing in that veteran. Like let's just treat him like he does exactly what Latavius Murray did last year, type of thing.
Yeah.
Like that's fine considering no one else on the depth chart really did much to bring much to the table. And maybe, especially compared to those guys, he's going to do more on the special team side and all that stuff. We'll see. But at the same time, it's like he couldn't really cut it in Miami. He had a really good season with Arizona for a couple years ago, and then they cut him loose too. And he's in Oakland, and like his other running mate there, Jacobs, can't really stay healthy, can't really produce. And they're cutting him there, and that's got a new coach who goes from the Belichick tree where they'd rather have like 8 running backs on the thing and like start them all every single different week. So like to me, just he couldn't cut it in these other spots these last few years. It just doesn't really resonate with me. I will eat crow if after the first few weeks he does a lot of really good stuff. Maybe looks like you know because even what we had last year with the veterans that they brought in, except for like Le'Veon Bell, like. They had their moments and that stuff. Like, maybe that happens, but right now, when that news broke this morning, first sent it to you guys, I was just like, what the fuck are we doing? But then with the cuts and other way, I get it to an extent. I don't necessarily like it to that.
Okay. I mean, listen, you got to remember, the one thing with him is before last year he had a few injuries that kind of kept him off the field. But in 2020, he had over 1,000 yards total from line of scrimmage. So it hasn't been that long that he was a pretty productive back in Arizona. And again, I think this offense predicates around the run game a little bit more than Arizona does. So I think his versatility can add something to it. I don't want him to be RB1. I don't think he will be RB1. He might be temporarily until JK is back to 100%. But I think it's a smart addition for the Ravens.
I think it's a smart addition. Here's why. And Drew, I get kind of what you're saying. But of what we've seen, right? And I know you're talking about the Dolphins, you're talking about the Cardinals, but that Cardinals 2020 year, we're talking about a similar, not the same, but a similar style of offense with a QB that can throw, that can scramble, and that you're going to need to be able to have a running back that can jump in and block at times and pick up a blocker. And that's one of the things that Kenyon Drake, I think, is going to come in and do and have the experience of doing it with that, similar type situation. So that's the other value that he brings, is protecting your biggest asset that we're all hoping gets paid.
Right. Go ahead, James.
I'm actually with Drew on this.
Ooh, split room.
I knew. I figured he would be.
I feel the same because we all talk about running backs only good for 5 years, and Drake hasn't done anything after his good year in Arizona. He had a good year
2020.
He had a good year in Miami, and then got traded to Arizona to help out, and he did well. And that's why, what was it, Johnson that they traded for?
David Johnson.
David Johnson got traded. But when he was in the Raiders, he didn't do anything last year that wowed me with them. And then a new guy, like Drew said, a guy that comes over from New England, and they have guys that you don't know what guy they're going to use, and it messes up your fantasy football. So you would think, oh, all these running backs are good to have. And Jacobs doesn't even look that good for the Raiders, and you're going to release a guy like Drake that could help out in the backfield. But then the Ravens bring him in, and then I say, well, it must have to be, because he's the Alabama guy. We're going to bring him in here, give him a shot and all. Hopefully he finds, some angel dust that can make him run fast. But he looked slow last year too. So I think it was just a bad signing. I think we should have just kept who we had and roll with it. And we bring this guy in and. I'm hope I'm wrong too, as Drew said.
Oh,
but
I mean, I'll admit it. I'll admit it the first month.
I would be happy when we brought Davis in, but then I realized, he's a big back. You can put him on goal line or just to eat that defensive line up a little bit until everybody gets healthy. I get that, but Drake, to me, it's just like another Murray. Like you just hope that he can find something, and I just think he just take up a roster spot.
All right. I mean, we'll see. Like I said, there still has to be some decisions to be made because, like I said, they're probably only going to carry 3 backs. And right now, you've got J.K., you've got Justice Hill, and you've got Mike Davis, right? So those are the 3 occupying. If they're only going to carry 3, well, one of them's got to go. So Justice Hill could still be on the chop block. Mike Davis could still be on the chop block.
Let me act like Ryan for a second. Why the fuck is this guy still around? Like
special teams.
I get it. Okay. Well, at the same time, though, like it can't just be about special teams.
But
if that's the case, then go sign someone that's only plays special teams.
That would be Justice Hill. I mean, I get it. Listen, we did have that for years. We had that in Anthony Levine.
I don't want to see him have any snaps.
I was sitting here looking it up as you guys were talking for a quick second, and you're acting like this guy hasn't done a lot, right? But here's what I'm going to tell you. In 6 years, the guy has put up 4,919 yards total, yards of scrimmage, or yards from scrimmage. So that's averaging 800-plus yards.
So
that's pretty good. He's had 3 seasons.
Then?
He's had 3 seasons with 1,000-plus. This isn't a guy that's I get what you're saying that they're spotty, but there's proven abilities here. You don't get get 1,000.
Freeman and what's the guy out of Pittsburgh? I can't think of his name right now. The back with
Connor?
No, the guy at Pittsburgh we brought in last year.
Lev.
Yeah, Le'Veon Bell. Those 2 guys were way past their prime. Past their prime. We were just trying to squeeze any juice that we possibly could.
Freeman was all right.
That was left out of it, but they were still way past their prime as far as football years go. Kenyon Drake is not past his prime as far as football years go. Last year's downside was because of injuries. It had nothing to do with he wasn't a productive back. He had injuries last year. Well, he's healthy now, right? And I know the Raiders.
Okay, why did the Raiders say?
Because they have a good amount of the same back. They have about 4 backs that are basically the same there, and they had to let go of somebody, and it just so happened to be Kenyon.
And
Drake.
they do a lot through the air.
Yeah, well, they're going to be doing a lot more through the air this year too.
But that's my point, right? Again, this is a guy that the guy averages regardless. He averages 5 yards. Last year was 5.9 yards per touch. I mean, 5.9 you'll take. 5.9 you'll take out of anybody. No, not in 3 games, James. In 12 games.
All right, we'll see. Like I said, there's still got to be a lot of questions still need to be answered with that position come tomorrow, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. The other one I think that stood out to me and stood out to most Raven flock out there was the one that we kind of warned you about, one that we thought was potentially going to happen, and that came down to the secondary, specifically the safety position.
One that we learned about last night, really, technically.
Yeah. Tony Jefferson and Ardarius Washington both released. Jefferson could still end up back on the roster or on the practice squad, depending upon if another team that and if another team signs him or not. He's proven to the NFL that he can still play.
Yeah, 100%.
And he's not old by any means. It was like the NFL just kind of wrote Tony Jefferson off for whatever reason. You got to give him a little
credit. He came in, maybe it was a little bit spotty, but that last few games, he really was.
He had a really good stretch.
Something to the table.
And honestly, he played, I think, one of the best safety roles in the preseason for the Ravens. I think he had a really good preseason. So I don't think Tony Jefferson is going to be with us because he's going to get another opportunity elsewhere. That's just my take.
Somebody's going to value what he brings from mentally from understanding the game and being able to help some of the young talent. Right? He's been in a team or on a team and in a franchise that it prides itself on a secondary. Right? And this is a guy that's seen it all, worked with the best, played with the best, and why would a team not give him a flyer to bring him in? Worst case scenario, he's got to come on in on a vet minimum deal for somebody. So worst case scenario, they bring him in, they don't like him, they drop him, we pick him up off their waivers. Right. Like he could very well make his way back, but I think he'll go somewhere else. But he very clearly said in his tweet the night before, last night before everything kind of broke today, we kind of got word that he basically said this isn't it. And, it's all love.
Yeah.
And it, to me, we all knew, okay, this means Tony's getting cut. They told him separately from everybody else and gave him the respect he deserved. And hopefully, I hope that they basically said, hey, we'll do exactly for you what we did for Cook. If somebody doesn't want you, or if you decide you don't want to go play anywhere, you're more than welcome to come back. We'd love to have you in a coaching capacity and be a special teams consultant.
See. Again, I still don't think his playing days are done.
I don't either. But I'm saying,
his playing days in Baltimore might not be done. It just depends on what happens with other teams and if he gets another opportunity elsewhere. Either way, I think if the opportunity presents itself where he can sign back with the practice squad and that is the only opportunity he gets, I think he'll take it.
He's smart enough. He knows he'll find his way back.
Darius Washington was the other one that was kind of surprising to me. Again, it comes down to they only have so many positions, right? And they ended up taking a decent amount of corners and safeties. What I really like about Darius Washington is his versatility, right? He can line up and play the nickel. He can play safety. You don't come around guys too often. I know they kind of have that in Brandon Stevens as well, because you can move Brandon Stevens as a boundary corner. You can move him in the slot. So maybe it's just an embarrassment of riches of having guys that have that kind of versatility.
I think so. And I would say, it was surprising, but at the same time, when I quickly thought about it, I quickly changed my mind and said, well, I'm not that surprised. And I'm not that surprised because the only reason we really got a chance to see him last year was because of the injury, that they had to dig into that depth bag.
Right.
Now, he presented well for sure, but now that you got all that depth back and you got some more and you have guys that evolved their own game, who knows? He may pick up somewhere else. I think he'll be back on the practice squad because I think other teams aren't going to value him like we do.
Right.
And that's going to be the benefit.
Staying on the defensive side of the ball, outside linebacker Dalen Hayes released. He's under the injury status right now. He's injured, but either way, he's been released. Pretty surprising, and I'll say that because I know he got hurt last year and he didn't play at all really last year, but everything that we heard about him in practice and in the preseason and all that stuff last year was that he looked really good and that he was way ahead of the curve as far as a rookie goes. This year, in the preseason, we didn't hear much about him at all. In practice, we didn't hear much about him at all. It sounded like he had kind of lost a little bit, with that time off.
Touch,
I don't know what the issue is there. What's surprising is how thin we are at outside linebacker, that we let a guy that we used a draft pick on last year go, and knowing that, the other outside linebacker in Ojabo that we drafted in the second round this year is not going to be ready until mid-season probably. Pretty alarming to me. This one kind of caught me off guard.
It did, but I think what they're probably thinking is that they can cover that up between the secondary and some of the other defensive line. I think that's one of the things that we're going to have to – we don't know what this scheme of McDonald looks like with all the starters in here against true competition. So – unfortunately, situation, it's rough to see it go because I think he really didn't get a fair shot, but we also don't know the whole story. We don't know what the full injury gambit is. They could be saying, look, this is an ongoing problem for you. We're not gonna take the chance anymore or whatever. Who knows? But clearly they were willing to cut ties pretty quickly with him compared to what they've done in the past.
It leaves them super, super thin at outside linebacker. So we could see some of these inside guys like we talked about before, like a Malik Harrison or somebody move to the outside. It's not ideal, but there could also be some free agent signings as well, depending on cuts and whatnot as well. Keep an eye out on this position.
What an outside linebacker, but let's not forget what happened with LJ Ford. I know I always go back to that, but nobody thought that was going to make a difference, and it did.
Right.
So I trust in DaCosta at this point.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Veteran Brent Urban, another cut. Kind of surprised by this move too, because it was a veteran that you knew what you were going to get out of him. But we've talked about the depth that this defensive line has as a group. So this is another position that you have an embarrassment of riches at, defensive line. There's some youth there that's really good, some pieces that I think stood out even more than I expected them to stand out in the preseason. So it came down to a numbers game with Brent Urban, and the Ravens let him go.
Well, I think you bring in a guy like that, a guy that knows and understands it, but then, again, we're not privy to everything, so that's the hard part here because Brent Urban was here under defensive scheming setup.
Yeah,
Does it not translate as much? Does he not translate as much? We don't know. And that's the hard part here is you hope that maybe that he picks up somewhere or winds up being on a practice squad, because I think, we all liked him when he was here.
Yeah.
He was a big contributor. But now I think it just goes to show you that the experience is important, but to them right now, it's what we've been saying for the past few years. They're focusing on the youth and the talent and growing it.
Right. Going along with that defensive line, undrafted free agent Isaiah Mack was also cut. This was not a surprise, again, because of the depth that we have, but this is absolutely a player that can play in the league and play tomorrow. So he will get an opportunity elsewhere. Wish him luck, because he's a guy that if we didn't have the depth that we have, 100% he would have made this roster, because he showed out in the preseason. He looked really, really good. I know everybody in the chat room's talking about it, so let's dive into this, right? The tight end group. This is where things kind of got a little interesting, and you have to forward think with this, right? So the Ravens end up keeping 5 tight ends. They end up keeping Mark Andrews, Nick Boyle.
Slam dunk.
Yep. Isaiah Likely.
Slam dunk.
Kohler, the new rookie tight end as well. And they kept Josh Oliver. That was the one that was like kind of surprising. Kohler, you had to keep him. He was a draft pick, right? A 4th-round draft pick. You had to, if you want to use him this year, you had to keep him on the 53-man roster, and then tomorrow you can give him the IR designation and still bring him back midseason. If you put him on the IR before you finalize the 53, he's done for the entire year, right? So that's why he is on the roster. So technically, tomorrow, Kohler will be on the IR. They'll be down to 4 tight ends. That'll open up a roster spot, more than likely to sign Kenyon Drake or whatever they're going to do with that spot. But they're going to be carrying 4 tight ends. And Josh Oliver was a guy that when it came down to numbers, I just didn't think Josh Oliver had a place on this team when you have guys like Andrews, Boyle, and Likely.
Same thing we've been saying. I think it came down to they did use him in a few of these preseason games on special teams. Maybe they saw something. Nothing stood out to me. He showed flashes last year, which maybe they're hoping that he gets in a rhythm with somebody and is able to show a little bit more. But I was a little surprised on that one.
So the other thing that you have to keep in mind here too is everything that we've been talking about with Isaiah Likely and his versatility and his ability to not just play tight end, but he can line up as a wide receiver.
Yeah, it's almost like you don't call him a tight end. He's a player.
Yeah.
He's an offensive player.
He is the NFL version of athlete.
Yeah.
You know how they label those guys in college athlete? That is what Isaiah Likely is.
Yeah.
He is an athlete, and I think really they're carrying 3 tight ends, and they're carrying 1 athlete in Isaiah Likely, because you will see him in all different
He will
forms
see the
of
field
offense.
a lot more than people think.
Go ahead, James.
I just want to say I'm just glad that we have the Michigan for our minor league football team. I was just wondering. I guess Ben Mason is our fullback.
No, Ben Mason was cut as well.
Oh, he was.
Yeah, he was cut.
Ben Mason was cut.
Thank
honestly,
God. Okay.
when I was watching the game, he made that one-handed catch, and I honestly wasn't paying attention. I was sitting there talking to my wife, and he made that one-handed catch, and I went, "What the hell is Pat Ricard doing on the field?" And then I saw the number, and I was like, "Oh, it's fucking Ben Mason."
It was so funny because that exact play, literally 30 seconds prior to it, Ryan and I are talking shit about Ben Mason, right? We're literally talking shit. He makes that play, and we both look at each other like, "Oh, it's a good catch." It was a good catch.
Look at Ryan. That noise.
Oh man.
The other one, the position that we're talking about here, wide receiver as well. I figured at least one of these guys would make the roster, but Rowley Webb, Mekhi Polk, Shamar Bridges, Benjamin Victor, all cut, all waived. This was a surprise.
So I did see that part of the reason Shamar Bridges was waived was the injury.
Yeah, so exactly. That's the same thing with Dalen Hayes. They had the injury designation. But here's the thing. All of these wide receivers at some point in the preseason shine. They all kind of had their moment in the sun. Benjamin Victor had a big game. Mekhi Polk had a good game. Shamar Bridges had a couple of good games. So I thought at least one of these guys was going to make it, right? You don't really have a lot of, like, you don't have many of those big body receivers, like those big targets that you can jump up in the end zone and catch the ball, like that kind of thing. So I thought a guy like Shamar Bridges or Benjamin Victor would make this roster off of just sheer need for like red zone target.
Without the injury designation, 100% Shamar Bridges. I think if he clears waivers, he'll make his way back up here later in the season.
Yeah, one or two of these guys will be on the practice squad, no doubt. But I just figured at least one of them
you're not going to be able to
made
stash
the
all
roster
three for sure.
Because right now, the only guys that you have are the usual suspects. You've got Bateman, you've got Prochet, you've got Duvernay, you've got Wallace, and now you've got Robinson. So those are your 5 wide receivers going into the year, which in the past we've seen them go anywhere from 5 wide receivers to up to 7.
Yeah.
7 was when they added Des Bryant a couple years ago, mid-season, right? They got up to 7. So usually the sweet spot for them is like 5 to 6 wide receivers active on the 53-man roster. But we'll see. I mean, there will be some shuffling throughout the year. Again, not all these guys are going to get picked up by other teams because there were a lot of wide receivers league-wide that were released today.
Several surprises.
And some really good talent, to be honest with you. There are a couple names that got my fire burning.
And Antonio Brown's still out there.
Yeah, Antonio Brown. Of course he is, Nick. But you got Tyler Johnson out there who was released by the Buccaneers. That's a guy that I've been on for the past couple years. I'd love to see him here. And then who was the other guy that I was talking about that got released earlier?
I have to look at our chat again.
Who was the other guy? It was 2 guys that got released. Brown. No, it was Bowden. Lynn Bowden from Miami. Because I liked Lynn Bowden out of Kentucky when he was in the draft, specifically for the Ravens, because he was that running back / wide receiver hybrid type player. And I thought in this type of system, he could be really, really effective. So I wanted the Ravens to draft him, and they didn't. So I think if the Dolphins have given up on him, he might be a good fit in this offense. But rob Peter to pay Paul. Who are you cutting to bring a guy like that in when you're already so tight against the number? So it'll be interesting to see.
And with a guy that has talent like that, you also question why were they cut?
Right.
If we think that they're like, you shouldn't always value everyone else's players, right? When somebody comes up, big name that you think can make an impact, it's one thing, and they very well may, but you're going to figure out pretty quickly why they were cut, or maybe it was scheming. Maybe it was
you can
usage.
say that, but then you'll contradict yourself, because then you're like, well, guys like LJ Ford help, and guys like, so they're just because someone else is cut and someone else is trash doesn't mean it's not our gold. You know what I mean? Like, we can find a spot and a position for them depending on how they fit this offense. And I think both of those guys would fit this offense well.
That's my whole point, is you don't know, but I also, this time of year, I get frustrated more so than any other time during the offseason, because you hear it more now. Every time, every name that's cut, they make a great Raven. They make a great Raven. There's 150,000 cuts going on right now, and you think 25 to 30% of them will make great Ravens. Well, why don't we just get our whole roster?
I think it was 840 something players were going to have to be cut today.
Right, that's my point. Like, it's
insane.
And when you're every name it comes, I saw people talking about centers that were cut, and I'm like, we just cut a center. Are you kidding me?
We kept an extra center. That was another thing. The Ravens ended up keeping 11 offensive linemen. They let go David Sharp, the tackle that they just brought back, right? So we talk about the question marks with Ronnie Stanley and if he's going to be ready to go. And he's been cleared to practice, and he hasn't practiced the first 2 days that he's been cleared. Or he hasn't been on the field anyway for those first 2 days. So where the hell is Ronnie Stanley? But then you let a tackle go. So that tells me maybe they think
Ronnie's coming back.
Ronnie is coming back. And, so I'm like all over the place with what to think about Ronnie Stanley. Juwan James is obviously probably going to be the day one starting left tackle. I just don't think at this point, with the lack of practice, that they can throw Ronnie Stanley out there.
You got 11 guys
to be ready to go.
Let him take his time.
Right. So he's going to work his way back in slowly. So to cut a guy like David Sharp surprised me, but then they end up keeping 11 offensive linemen total, one of those guys being Tristan Colon.
Yeah.
Right? So you just drafted a center in Linderbaum. You've got a guy like Macari who can play anywhere on the offensive line, including center. So to me, Colon becomes kind of expendable at that point, but they keep him. It just kind of blew my mind. I feel like tackle help, because he's never played tackle. Tackle is a bigger need, and I felt like Sharp held his own pretty decent at tackle. So kind of a questionable move.
It is, but there's got to be a hidden reason for it, and I think they're looking at depth, and if they can keep healthy elsewhere, having more depth on that line, more variations will be helpful.
Ben's right on the same page. He says, Cologne feels like trade bait, 11 linemen is just too much, and if Ronnie is healthy, we don't need Macari at tackle. Exactly, and that's exactly what I'm trying to say. You and I are on the same wavelength there.
Yeah.
It's be interesting to see what happens, man. You know the Ravens, they don't make dumb moves, right? And everything that they do is strategic. You heard teams releasing who they cut at like 10 o'clock this morning, 11 o'clock this morning, 12 o'clock this morning.
The Ravens don't announce theirs until after 4 o'clock.
What incentive do you have to release the names that you're cutting prior to the 4 o'clock deadline? There's no incentive for you to do that. So the Ravens wait till the last seconds to do that because they know all these other idiot teams out there are going to release players, and then to the last minute, they're plugging and playing and trying different things. Well, this guy got released. He could probably replace this. It's like this whole mastermind. You know, I'm not saying, listen, Eric DeCosta comes with his flaws. I get that. But he was trained by one of the best to ever do it, Nazi Newsom. And that front office, I don't question very often. They usually make very good financial decisions and very good roster decisions.
One of the interesting pieces that came out of this is when we started talking about all these guys that we picked up, especially out of the draft, the undrafted guys. One of the things we've always questioned, because the Ravens have a history of keeping at least one, if not 2, 3, or 4 guys.
Finding the diamonds in the rough.
They find those guys that they got super high value out of, but they got them for low cost, essentially. And this year, we see that, no surprise, it's a Michigan boy.
I was just saying, I didn't have to look very far.
And Josh Ross makes the roster here, which, everything
no surprise to me.
Everything we were hearing was that we kept hearing McDonald is telling Harbaugh, "You're going to love this kid. You're going to love this kid," and then we heard Harbaugh say, "I love the kid." Like
okay, I know it's super early. But he reminds me a lot of Zach Orr. When Zach Orr was a rookie, another undrafted free agent, right?
You got Zach Orr coaching.
Very similar path. Zach Orr is now a coach, right? But he's just got a high football IQ. He's got an instinct for the football. He knows how to be elusive enough from the blockers to be able to get around blocks, to get to the ball carrier. And he's got quick, explosive speed to get to the ball carrier. I like Josh Ross a lot, so I'm not surprised one bit that he made the roster. And again, you're probably going to have some of these interior linebackers playing outside linebacker because of the lack of depth that we have at outside linebacker. So there is a need there. And listen, you know me, I like Patrick Queen. I think he's underplayed his draft position so far by a good bit. So I'm hoping he makes a big jump from last year to this year. He needs to.
Yeah. He made a minimal jump last year.
If Josh Ross continues on the path that he's on, he's going to be pushing time.
I would say you think he could take Queen out
He's going to be
middle of the
pushing
year.
time, yeah, for playing.
I mean, I can't say I disagree. I mean, everything we're hearing and everything we're seeing is he's going to be able to play up his game. He's playing game speed.
Right.
And he's going to be able to do well. And it's that damn benefit of knowing he knows the scheming that McDonald's going for. He knows the playing. He's going to think like McDonald. And that's, as much as we hate Michigan and Ryan hates Michigan, and Ryan's going to hate to hear it, that's the benefit to drafting some of these guys from a defense that come from Michigan right now.
Garnett says, it's okay. He's overrated, Fred. I'll say it for you. Patrick Queen is a disappointment. You're right. Yeah. Listen, I'm not I'm not paid by the team or anything like that. I'm not trying to mince my words. I don't think Patrick Queen is a bad player. I just don't think he's played up to a round one selection. Yeah. He hasn't. He's more of like a mid-third, fourth round kind of guy.
If his production was like late second, you'd be like, all right, yeah, okay.
Right,
okay,
exactly.
Yeah. No.
But at a first-round pick, no. And I think Josh Ross is going to be a nice find for them. So we'll see. Yeah. But now it's time for us to do our annual season predictions. I know we've done some preseason picks a few weeks back or a few months back now at this point. James is definitely going to give you shit. Well, but that's the whole reason we do this. Things change. The roster changes. You get to see what the defense and offense, you get to see where things shake out, right? So I'll start with James then. We'll start with James. We'll let you go down the list. First, what I want out of you is I want your team record. Where do you think the Ravens finished this year, team record-wise?
as I said 4 months ago, 11-6.
All right, so you're sticking with the 11-6 prediction, okay?
Yeah.
Do you see them being in the playoffs at 11-6?
Can be.
Can be. Yes or no?
It can be.
No.
I
Yes
can't
or no?
I can't predict the future.
That's what the whole point of this is.
I hope.
That's like exactly what we're doing here.
I hope.
It's in the title,
Prediction,
James.
yeah.
Predictions. Let's go.
Yes,
You
no.
know, there's
Playoffs or
injuries
not?
and stuff.
Yeah, of
With
course.
that record, yes.
They're going to make the playoffs. Okay.
Okay.
Your team MVP this year,
I had Bateman.
Rashad Bateman. Wow.
Okay.
Yep.
That's pretty big for him to be a team MVP.
Yep.
All right. Your offensive player of the year,
Likely.
Isaiah Likely,
Okay.
for
I'm glad
offensive
James
player
is
of the
back.
year.
Look,
Listen,
I love it.
I'm high on this kid, but I don't know if I'm that high. That's like unicorn high, but we'll see.
Stay off the weed.
Yeah. Defensive player of the year. Who you got?
Oway.
Oh, wait. Okay. So you think he's going to make a big jump from year 1 to year 2?
Yep.
All right. Best rookie of the year for the Ravens.
Linderbaum.
Get out of here. Wait, I'm surprised you didn't say Trevor Penning, regardless of who team he plays for.
He's a Pro Bowl.
Yeah, he's injured right now. He's not playing.
Yeah.
He's not playing. All right, AFC North standings. You said the Ravens are going to make the playoffs,
Yeah.
but how do you see the AFC North shaking out this year?
I have the Bengals, the Ravens, the Steelers, and the Browns are going to just be the Browns.
Okay. All right, that's fair enough. So you got the Bengals winning the division. You got the Ravens winning as a wild card, then the Steelers and the Browns. All right.
And I just want to throw out there, I would have picked the punter as the offensive specialist, but there's no special teams. But, you know, he has to be on offense to punt the
could've
ball.
been
Rocking that Steel jersey.
He could have been
But-
rookie of the year.
You're right.
But he is going to be a Pro Bowler with Tucker.
All right. All right.
All right.
Give me your Super Bowl teams.
I had the Bills versus the Packers.
Bills versus the Packers. Okay.
All right.
We'll come to that later and see what happens, and then we'll do our actual winners. Drew, start with you.
Let's do it.
Team record. Where do you got the Ravens finishing?
Undefeated. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Homer.
Homer pick if you're going undefeated.
Yeah.
12-5. Same thing as I said.
12-5.
months
Okay.
ago.
Who do you got for team MVP?
Lamar.
Safe
Cornerstone,
pick.
man.
Of course.
Cornerstone. It's a safe pick. Yeah, one safe pick with that one, but he's
All
a
right.
cornerstone.
Offensive player of the year.
I drink the Kool-Aid enough. Let's see if he can rebound. Maybe it'll be a slow start, but I'm going to stick with Dobbins as that offensive player of the year.
Okay. All right.
I think it'll be a slow start, obviously, but
You think he's going to make up ground strong in that,
he's that damn good.
that latter half. All right. I like it. Defensive player of the year.
Marcus Peters.
So you got two guys
So-
coming back with ACL injuries winning the offensive and defensive player of the year. I like it.
That'd be comeback player of the year too, right
Yeah,
there.
right?
Like,
All the above.
Like you could compare the two, and Dobbins is maybe a little bit slower out the gate, like we've seen with some of the individual. Like we've only seen a couple of the individual drills, but like the first couple, it kind of looked a little bit, a little bit slower. But then it seems like it is progressing with him at least. But like the kind of clips we've seen to Peters, it was like turning on a dime and going.
Right.
It just looked like that speed's there, and it's a little bit easier as a corner in my mind because you won't have to touch the ball as much. You'll be doing them, going for them takeaways maybe
Right.
more than tackles necessarily too. So yeah, I think it'd be cool.
Well, turning the ball over is going to be a point of emphasis with this defense. They said
yeah.
it. It's going to have to be, right?
Yeah.
Your rookie of the year.
Linderbaum.
Linderbaum. All right, 2 for 2 on Linderbaum. I like it. Safe pick,
Safe pick.
The first round pick. How do you have the AFC North shaking out this year?
Ravens taking it. Bengals, then the Steelers. Don't nap on the Steelers. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm gonna tell you that shit now. I can see the Steelers. I'm not. I'm trying to like bring an extra layer. If the Steelers won this division, it wouldn't surprise me.
Really?
We all thought that last year. We thought,
With who at quarterback?
but
Is it Kenny Pickett?
It's gonna be Pickett.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
But we all kind of thought that with Ben last year, right? You know what I mean? I know how kind of like we fell off, and there's other factors to it, but like they still made the playoffs last year. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
with
I get it.
Tomlins hasn't had a losing record yet. I wouldn't write him off. I still got him at third though, and then the Browns. I mean, they're trotting out Brisket.
Yeah.
It ain't gonna be good.
It's going to be a shit show like
If
usual.
it is, I mean, it's
you've
still
got
gonna be. But to me, as everyone's like jumping on the West now that they've kind of added a bunch of defensive players and Russell Wilson, but like. To me, this is still the best division of football.
All right. Garnett said he's going to shotgun a beer for James and Drew for the Linderbaum pick.
Yeah.
There we go.
He's a Linderbaum
Like it.
guy. Love
Hey,
it.
I mean, at least I did. That was my prediction that he was getting drafted.
Super Bowl teams. Who do you got?
Niners over Bills.
Niners.
Wow.
Yeah.
I catch a niner in there?
Wait.
You call it
Which-
a walkie-talkie?
with Trey Lance or with Jimmy Garoppolo?
Trey Lance. But they got that insurance
Take
now.
off the
Hey,
weed.
man, look. Did they go to the NFC
Wow.
Championship game last year?
Because of who?
Did they go to the NFC Championship? No.
You don't get to
No.
say that. Oh, they went
No,
there.
you're
They
gonna let me
went
talk.
there
You're
because
gonna
of
let me
Jimmy
talk. Let him finish.
Garoppolo.
Did
Let him
they
finish.
go to the NFC
Yes, they
Championship
did.
game last
Yes,
year?
they did.
Now, the other team all of us picked, where did they go? They didn't go to the AFC Championship game last year, but we're all confident in them going.
Okay. All right. Listen, I would put a
Saying.
little bit of money on that if that's what you really think the Super Bowl matchup's going to be on, because I think if it
Still
hits, it's
pretty
going to
damn
be a
good
nice
defense. If
payout.
they stay
No, it's
healthy.
not. I'm saying they're a good team. I just
A lot of their issues
Lot
are
of
where
question
they fall
marks.
off
It's like-
because they can't stay healthy. If
we
they
talk
stay
about
healthy,
the importance of the quarterback position, and
Yeah.
there's some question marks there right now. But
Serious question marks.
yeah, we'll see.
how bad's it going to be if Lance wins the Super Bowl before Lamar?
Oh man, don't even throw that out there in the world.
Why would he even
Scott,
say that?
Scott,
Jesus
moving
Christ.
on, Drew. That's enough. Scott, where do you got this team finishing with the record this year?
All right, so my preseason prediction is James is going to call me out if I don't bring it up. Was 14-3, but after everything shakes
Soften
out,
the blow a little bit here.
yeah, after everything shakes out, I think this team is going to fight for the division.
Mm-hmm.
It might come down to a division game that we'll see whether we win or lose. But I got 11-6.
Okay, 11-6. Who's your team MVP?
Mark Andrews going to have a career year as a tight end.
All right, I like
God,
it.
they making the playoffs.
So, who do you got as offensive player of the year?
Lamar.
That makes sense.
Offset one with the other, but
Well,
I
if
think
Andrew's going to be player of the year, it's got to have somebody to
The
get
guy
him the
feed
ball.
him
So
the
it's got to
ball,
be
yeah.
Lamar, right?
Yeah.
Defensive player of the year.
Oweh.
I like it. You and James both feel like
Yep.
Oweh's going to have a big jump from
Make
year
a
one to year
big,
two.
big jump.
That's going to be cute, huge.
It's gonna be
Rookie
cute.
of- it's gonna be cute, huge, all of the above.
Anything positive, any
Yeah.
positive adjective you can come up with.
Yeah. Rookie of the year.
Kyle Hamilton.
Okay. All right. You got a lot of fans.
Watch for him to have a lot of picks.
All right.
He will outpick Marcus Peters this season.
Oh, that's a bold prediction.
Mm-hmm.
He'll have more. Write that down somewhere, James. He'll have more interceptions. than
He'll
Marcus
break out your
Peters.
little piece of
He doesn't need
paper.
to
again.
Write that down somewhere.
Department, his fucking brain.
All right. So you said 11-6. You said
Mm-hmm.
fighting for the division. Tell me how the division shakes out.
Well, I think they will win the division
At 11-6.
at 11-6.
That's enough to win the division. Okay.
I said it could come down to one game. You could have the Ravens and the Bengals being the two teams at 11-6. And if the Ravens can pull out a win with a decent run differential, or not run differential, I'm so used to baseball, with a decent point differential, that's the season right
All right,
there.
so
I think it's
give
gonna
me
be
the-
close.
give me the division
So I
breakdown.
got Ravens, Bengals, Steelers, Browns. I agree with what kind of Drew said. The Steelers, I don't sleep on them. They surprised a lot of people with how they looked in some of the preseason games.
Yeah.
With a bunch of backups, and I get it. It's a bunch of backups, and these guys are playing. But hey, you can never count them out. Even when we have counted them out, they've found their way to squirm back in somehow.
Yeah.
So I don't put it past them.
All right. All right. So I'll go with my predictions here.
Hey, what else? Super Bowl prediction?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I forgot. Your Super Bowl prediction. Right. So far, we've got Bills and Packers with James. We got 49ers and Bills with Drew.
Bills, Rams.
Hey, with
I'm
the
finding
Rams,
a consistent
with
vibe here.
quarterback because his elbow's about to fall off any day now. I'm just kidding.
So we got another one on the Bill wagon. So we got Bills versus Rams.
Hi, Chuck. How are you doing, Chuck?
So you got the defending Super Bowl champions in the Rams going for a repeat against the Buffalo Bills, who are absolutely loaded.
Yeah. I think that would be, and I think it's going to be a great matchup. And
like
it's going to be a gunslinger of a game.
Yeah, I like it. All right, so for me, I'm right there with Drew on the record. I've got them finishing 12-5, which is a one-game change from where I was. I was 13-4 previously. I'm going to 12-5 now. Team MVP, the layup answer, Lamar.
Okay.
I think he's going to be playing for his contract. I think because the contract doesn't seem to be getting done before this year ends, so it's in Lamar's hands to put up or shut up. And I think he has a big, big year this year because so far he has not choked at any sign of like pressure.
He has a big, big year, gets the MVP. did you double up and make him the offensive player of the year then too?
So that's going to be Mark Andrews, because Mark Andrews, I mean, you lose a guy like Marquise Brown, right? And we already know what Mark Andrews did last year. Listen, Bateman's going to have a big role. I think Likely is going to have a big role, but push comes to shove, Mark Andrews is number 1 and number 2 for Lamar. Like he's looking Mark Andrews' ways twice on every play. That's
check down, double check down.
That's his guy, right? So I think Mark Andrews has another big year.
Yeah. Defensive
Player of the Year. It looks like 3 of us are on the same path here. I got Oweh. Big jump, man. He has to, right? Yeah. This defense, having Mike McDonald, who is supposedly, more friendly to outside rushers and letting them kind of do what they're built to do, versus Wink asking guys to do different things that maybe don't work to their strengths. I think Oweh's primed to have a big year, and everything that you're hearing out of camp sounds positive.
All right, so then who's your Rookie of the Year?
Rookie of the Year, this one I would have hands down picked this answer if he was healthy today. But I'm still going to go with this guy because I still think his impact is going to be felt when he's healthy. Travis Jones. Even as deep as this defensive line is, he's going to provide an interior pass rush presence that we haven't seen in a while. We've had Big Baby, who's great against the run and all that stuff for years, but on the interior line, we haven't had a guy that can get in there and wreak havoc like Travis Jones can. Travis Jones, the strength and combination of strength and speed that he has as a rookie is unmatched. There's very few guys that come into the league that have that kind of raw ability.
He's going to have to make a big statement over guys that have already started to, like a Likely, like a Hamilton, Linderbaum, like these two are thinking. I think that was the close one. But no, I get what you're saying. If everything works out, if all cylinders are firing strong, he's got serious potential there. So all right, so then how do you got 12-5 as your record? How's the AFC North standing out?
So I do think this comes down to a 1-game decision here, and I think ultimately, unfortunately, the division's going to come down to the Ravens and the Bengals. And I understand that the Ravens have bulletin board material with the Bengals because of what the Bengals have said publicly on some podcasts, specifically the wide receivers. But the Bengals absolutely manhandled the Ravens twice last year. And
with a lot of backups.
I get that. I understand. I'm not saying they're going to get manhandled again, but I do.
The first time that defense was still pretty intact, though.
Yeah, and here's the thing.
You have your number one.
I think the Bengals are going to have a level of confidence going into that game, both of those games, because of what happened.
So
last
then,
year.
The Ravens and take advantage and trap them in.
And I hope I'm wrong. Yeah. Trust me, I will eat crow on, and I hope I'm wrong. But I think the Bengals will do enough to win the games and win that extra game. So I think the Bengals win the division. I think the Ravens get in via wild card, Steelers third, and Browns. I do not have the Steelers making the playoff this year. I do, however, have Pickett being the starting quarterback before the end of the year because that guy, when you watch any of the preseason games, looks already light years ahead of Rudolph and Trubisky.
Yeah.
We've seen enough of Trubisky over the years to know what to expect with him. I think Pickett will be the quarterback there of the future, and then I've got the Browns cleaning up the back end like normal.
All right, last one. We're 3 for 4 right now. Can we go 4 for 4?
We're gonna go 4 for 4. So this is a good show for you, Chuck. I got the Bills playing against Tom Brady and the Bucks in the Super Bowl.
The Summers are already in there calling us crazy because they're a cursed team that's never going to ever win the title. So.
I didn't say they're going to win.
I didn't either.
We all said they were going to get there.
We haven't done the winners yet. We're going to do that at a future show. But I think the Bills are built to win now, so they'll get there. And the Buccaneers, again, any team that you've got Tom Brady managing and Tom Brady being the quarterback, they've always got a chance every year. And they've done nothing but upgrade to their wide receiver core. I know they lost Antonio Brown, but they bring in a guy like, Julio Jones, who is still a very good wide receiver, and he doesn't have to be wide receiver 1 on this team. You've got Mike Evans. You've got Chris Godwin. They've got targets all over the board. The big question mark is going to be the tight end position, losing his security blanket and Rob Gronkowski. We'll see how that works out. but I still think the Bucs will do enough to be in the Super Bowl.
All right. We got some predictions coming through. Yuri says, for me, 12-5, team MVP Lamar, offensive player of the year Bateman, defensive player of the year Marcus Williams, Roy, rookie of the year Travis Jones, AFC North champs Chargers versus the Rams, Battle of LA.
Hey, Steven, he says, everyone's picking the Bills, means they will be cursed this year. I hope that's what happens. I hope we curse the Bills and they don't make the playoffs.
Sorry,
Earmuff Summers.
Sorry,
That they
Summers.
don't make the playoffs and the Ravens just slide right in somehow. But
You know, there might be a little reverse psychology
I am
working here.
so happy that none of us picked the Ravens. I am like really, really happy that none of us did this, just because I didn't want the bad juju of putting them in there.
Well, I think for me, for the outset, like I still believe in them. And then without it being a homer thing, but there's still too many question marks. You know what I mean? Like
agreed.
the Bills on paper, like, and that's the thing
They're
with the
ready to
Bills and the
go.
Bengals last year. Like, especially them, Kansas City a little bit too. They're the ones that kind of at the end.
Yeah.
They all stayed relatively healthy.
Right.
That's the kind of thing. Like, does that happen to them? The Bengals, that kind of thing that keeps sticking in my mind. Like, that's kind of the only thing that could screw them because to me, it's like they're still bringing the same team over.
Right. No, I agree with you. And then they bring in a guy on the defensive side like Von Miller, who has been a lightning rod for all the teams that he's played for, Denver and then the Rams last year, and now with the Bills this year. So Bills are in a good position, I think.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right, James, your time to shine. Time for a social media shout out. Who's been in the chat room?
Tonight-
Who's chatting it up?
Tonight, the chat room has been lit. We
Lit.
hit 100 in
Heyo.
no time, so thank you for that.
Appreciate each and every one of you.
Yep. First off in the room was Chuck Summers. We had Dave,
Of course.
Steven, Joshua, Stephanie, Steve, Kamal, Justin, Mike, Sharon, Sherry, Yuri, Deshaun, Garnett, Lacey, Andrew, Ben, and Floyd 97. And there was a long YouTube name. I couldn't even understand what the name was, but whoever that long name on YouTube, thank you for your chat. But it's been.
I think it was something like
nonstop.
Raven in Georgia or something like that.
It was like Shing Chong, long ass.
Yuri
going
says Herbert over Allen. Actually had a really tough decision. Like when I was debating on the AFC, had a real tough choice between the Chargers.
I
and
told
the
you.
Bills.
Same with me. I said Rams, but it was close with the Chargers.
Go ahead, James. Sorry.
So, but yeah, it's been all going off. I think getting these sort of predictions and things. I think everybody's jumping into it, which was great.
Any
So,
pinned messages we haven't brought
yeah,
up?
I got 7 of them up.
All right,
here.
what do we got?
All right, so here's the first one.
All right, from Josh says Lamar will be fine. He's practicing against one of the best secondaries every day.
This is
It's a
what
great
we're
point.
talking about when
Yeah.
is Lamar gonna be okay and all that.
By the way, shout out to Josh. Josh messages. Josh is out in Kuwait watching
Oh,
the show
wow.
live. It's like 2 a.m. out there.
That's
Appreciate
awesome, man.
it, brother.
Appreciate you, Josh.
Next one is Steve. Was just saying this is gonna be a tough.
But
year
Shoddy
for-
not going to pay
Yeah.
Lamar
This
$230
is-
guaranteed.
This is gonna be a tough year for the Ravens because if it's get ugly, where they franchise them
Yeah,
or
so
whatever,
this
I
is
think
all,
it'd be better if you can't get a contract done this year, just trade them, get some comp picks or
Yeah.
whatever.
This is all about the guaranteed money. And to your point, the Browns made a piss poor organizational decision by giving him all that money guaranteed. But we saw after that the kind of deal that Kyler Murray got, which was in the neighborhood of $160-some million guaranteed. So just because the Browns made a piss poor decision does not mean the Ravens are going to make that same decision. And I'll be honest with you, if that's the sticking point with Lamar is that he wants Deshaun money or more guaranteed, I just don't see Bisciotti doing it, being the smart business guy that he is. But if the target is I want more than what Kyler got and I want to be between Kyler and Deshaun, then I think those conversations are still ongoing. There's a good chance that gets done.
And I don't know if you heard, but apparently the holdup is he wants to guarantee because he said being a quarterback and him running, you get injuries, so he wants that guaranteed money to be there. And I get it as a player, but as an owner, Steve is not just throwing
He's
money
never
around.
done it.
Business first, pleasure on the side, pleasures to Ravens.
don't care
and
about
it's gonna be
winning.
tough. So
We'll see.
I hope it all works out. We all do. So the next one is from Ben.
Says the important thing here is that there are so many moves to be made. The current 53 and the 53 in New York are going to look pretty different. Exactly. That's what I was basically trying to say. There's so much shuffling of things that are going to happen. There could be guys that we don't even have on our radar that are going to be on this roster before week 1. So there's a lot of things and a lot of questions that will be answered over the next couple days. It starts tomorrow once some of these players can go on the IR. A couple positions open up. So we'll see what happens.
So speaking of IR, Ben came back with this one.
Tight end. I thought it was weird at first, but not bad. Oliver's gone when Kohler comes off IR. Agreed. They probably don't want Ricard lining up at tight end as much as last year, if at all. I agree with
Fair
that
enough,
too.
yeah.
So I group Ricard in that running back conversation,
Yeah.
like when you're factoring numbers. Whereas last year, because of the injury to Boyle, I factored him more into the tight end number because there was a need there. But Boyle being back, you're right. He's not really going to be playing tight end much at all.
So I just want to throw this out because I sort of feel this a little way, but in some ways, hopefully he gets back out there and he's healthy. But
Steve says, Ronnie Stanley. He's stealing money from the Ravens like Mike Preston said when he was drafted. He's soft. The Ravens wasted their money on Stanley.
That's a terrible take, Steve. That's an absolutely terrible take. He was an all-pro tackle. He was paid like an all-pro tackle.
Nobody knew he was getting injured.
Hadn't missed any time, really, before the contract.
Brown's doing
Got the contract, and then the next day he got hurt. Again, it was an injury that wasn't predictable. It was an injury that it's shit happens type of thing, you know. And as far as him not practicing right now, none of us know like what the actual condition of his foot is right now. None of us know what the plan the Ravens have for him. Harbaugh keeps talking in his interviews is that they have this plan for him and he's following the plan. I don't think he'd be on the 53-man roster right now if they thought he wasn't going to be ready. They would have put him on the IR or they would have put him on the PUP list, one or the other, to buy themselves a little bit more time. I think Ronnie Stanley will come back. It's just not – I don't know if it'll be ready for week 1.
yeah, and then there's Stephanie just sums it up.
Look into the Bills' curse. They won't win a Super Bowl until they get a new stadium. No, I'm well aware of the curse with them, and you know, I love the Bills. Honestly, if I wasn't a Ravens fan, I think I'd be a Bills fan too. But I'm pulling for you guys if it's not for against the Ravens.
Before we finish out the social media section, I just want to reiterate for those of you guys that maybe weren't here at the top of the show, make sure that you guys, if you haven't already, join the ESPN Fantasy Pick'em League that we set up. The link it's on YouTube and Facebook. There's a link in the description of the show. We'll also have it on the descriptions that we put on the audio version of the show. Go on. It's Birdland BS with a capital B at the beginning and a capital BS
Just
at the end.
follow the link. That's all you need. Follow the link and sign up.
Follow the link, sign up, put your teams in. As Fred said earlier, set your weekly Wednesday reminder to set your teams up so they aren't waiting until the last minute, because it does, to Drew's point, it does take a few minutes to actually go through.
Free to enter, free to play. Birdland BS prize pack at the end, but more importantly, bragging rights because you're going against each one of us. So make sure you get in there. There's like 25 people in there the last time I looked, so make sure if you haven't done it already, you do that soon. And moving on. All right, fellas, it's time for some bros, bows, and O's. We're going to keep this short because we've got some Terps to talk this week, which we haven't talked much about this year. But with the Orioles right now, team sitting at 67-60, 2 games back at the playoffs, 35 games remain. Coming off a big series win over Trey Mancini and the Houston Astros.
Nice to see.
Took 2 out of 3 in Houston. That was big. Opened a 3-game series today in Cleveland. Did they lose? I know they were losing.
Yeah, they lost 5-1, and they only had 1 fucking hit.
Wow.
Oof.
So
and it was way back in like the second inning.
we're going to talk about that in a second here. So let's start with what the difference has been as of late, specifically in this Houston series, because they went in there again in a tough environment against the second best team in baseball when you look at the record, and won 2 out of 3.
And for all intents and purposes, starting pitching shut down one of the best offensive teams in the league.
Absolutely.
And you look at this, Kramer, Bradish, and Voth all looking good in this series and really looking good. They're all 3 of them starting to look good down the home stretch. We've been saying their names more often and good things with their names.
Yeah.
Right? In this series, Bradish in the first game gets a W. He goes 8 innings, gives up no runs on 2 hits with 6 Ks and 2 walks. That is a damn good line, and I'll take that every day of the week.
Right.
And twice on Sunday. Speaking of Sunday, we'll get to both in a minute. But Kramer on Saturday, he gets the W as well, going 7 2/3, giving up 1 run on 4 hits, 3 Ks, no walks. Again, very respectable line, especially if your offense is able to put it up.
Respectful. That's dominant.
And then Voth, he gets an L, but goes a respectable 6 innings, giving up 1 run on 1 hit. So, again, 1 hit through 6 innings. He was throwing a 1-hitter. He had 4 Ks. Thing that hurt him in this was the 3 walks. It is what it is, but still respectable line when he came out of the game.
So what I'm hearing out of these is you got 3 starters that went 8, 7 2/3, 6 innings that gave up a combine of 7 hits in those 3 games. That's super impressive.
7 hits on 2 runs on 7 hits.
2 of these guys were guys that we had no idea were going to be a part of this rotation, right? In Kramer and Voth. Bradish finally starting to show what we all hyped him up to be, and hopefully he can repeat this.
2 hits on 8 runs on 8 innings? Yeah.
He had this kind of performance against St. Louis in St. Louis, so it's not an anomaly. Like, we know that this is what Kyle Bradish is capable of. We just need to see it consistently. But what I'm really liking out of these is how deep they're going into games. It was one of the big reasons that we wanted to bring in Jordan Lyles, was we wanted guys that could eat up innings, give rest to the bullpen. And the bullpen, has been dominant this year, but they've gotten a little bit more work as of late that they needed this kind of a break. So this was a very important series for many reasons. Obviously, the standings is first and foremost right now. But to do it on the road against a team like Houston, to have this kind of a dominant pitching performance on all three games, even with the loss, all 3 games were very good pitching performances.
Yes.
That's what I walk away with most impressed.
And that Kramer game, I mean, you also, it's not just them, right? We've talked about Bautista, right? But he comes into that game, and I was like scratching my head when he brought him in the 8th to finish to get that last out. But he finishes it out. He gets the save there. And so it was good to continue to see these guys doing it. So here's my question to you guys, right? We've talked about this team, and one of the things that we've mentioned in the past was the starting pitching really needed to come together if the hitting was there. Hitting has struggled here at times as of recent. It's not consistent, which is part of the problem. But now that the starting pitching is really seeming to solidify itself down the stretch here, and these guys are doing well, does this team have the ability to win a playoff game? I mean, let's think about this for a second. In the month of August, they've had 1 losing series all month, and it was in Tampa against Tampa, and it was a
very good series.
Very good series with a close game that could have gone either way. That literally came down to the last out. They just couldn't finish it on that last out.
Yeah, after that series, they were like 51-51, and then now they're 6 games above 500. So
right.
So
it shows you they're still in the thick of it.
Right. And so my question, do you think, you said before specifically that you didn't think this team could win a playoff. Do you still think that? Do you still think that they can't win a playoff game if it came to a wild card situation?
I'm not saying that they can't win a playoff game. What I'm saying is offensively, this lineup has a lot of holes right now. And you got a guy like Ryan Mountcastle, who's supposed to be your clear-cut, power-hitting, middle-of-the-lineup guy, who just looks like Ray Charles up there swinging a bat right now. He is so far off, and you can see
he's pulling his head out.
You can see his frustration. It's trickling over into the dugout. It's trickling over on the field. He's carrying it with him. I kept thinking, like, he had a couple games where he hit a home run, and I thought, maybe that's what he needs. Maybe he'll come out of it.
Yeah.
But he just can't seem to get it figured out.
I'll tell you what, though, that part of things is contagious right now, because I was at the game on Saturday, and Austin Hayes, not Saturday, but last Friday.
He's another one. He's another one that's been struggle bus for a while now, and he's another one. I was like this as a player too, is that I wore my emotions on my sleeve. You could see if I was feeling good about myself, and you could clearly see if I was feeling bad about myself. And Austin Hayes is that guy too. Ryan Mountcastle is that guy. So between Hayes, Mountcastle, Urias has been kind of up and down. Odor has been more down than anything all year. Yes, he's had his clutch moments, but that's 4 hitters in a 9-batter, rotation that they're big holes. So what do the Orioles do? Do the Orioles do anything to plug some of these holes? Do they bring up, some of these young guys that are waiting in the wings that we'll talk about, the Gunners of the world, the Westbergs of the world? Because if they really are legitimately going to give a shot at a playoff run this year, unexpectedly, then they're doing themselves a disservice if they don't bring these young guys up, because this lineup sorely needs them.
But you got to bring them up before Thursday.
I know. There's ways around it. There's loopholes around it.
Yeah, I
But
started seeing this loophole shit.
Yeah.
I'm still so confused. I don't know what to believe anymore.
I know.
Other than I just want those freaking guys here.
right,
My
exactly.
understanding with that, what everybody's talking about with the loopholes, it has to do with the guys that have been up here before. So if they've been up to the major league level before in any way, shape, or form, last year, this year, that's where like the loophole. But when you're first bringing a guy up, because what they don't want people to do is just stashing some of these kids, and it's that whole messing with service time, right? If you're going to bring them up, you're going to bring them up. They're not going to be eligible to take you into the postseason, and that's what they're trying to avoid. So I get it, and there are loopholes, but we'll see. I get what you're saying.
Again, I'm not saying that they can't win a playoff series or a playoff game, even with the lineup that they have right now. But I just think if you want to put your best foot forward, there are holes, there are obvious holes that could be plugged. I still don't understand why Vavr's not playing over Odor right now. Defensively and offensively, he's a better option. I don't care.
But Odor can turn double plays so good.
Yeah, right, exactly.
He can get that hole in right field.
So you've got
too.
an internal option right there.
Yeah.
And then again, the Gunners of the world and the Westbergs of the world, we need them up. If you really want to make a legitimate run at it, a legitimate shot, put your best foot forward, then you got to put the best lineup on the field.
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with you. I think
You don't agree with me, or you do agree with me?
I don't agree with
The way
you.
he said it made it sound like he's agreeing.
I don't agree with you.
The tone said I agree.
No, I don't agree with you in the fact that you have to bring those guys up to make a run, because if just two of those four guys.
Hold on. That wasn't what I said. You missed what I just said.
Maybe I misunderstood you then.
Yeah, I said I'm not saying they can't win a playoff game. I'm not saying they can't win a playoff game with who they've got right now. My point is, if you really want to be aggressive and put the best lineup on the field to give you your best chance, that's not what the lineup that they have right now. There are other pieces on the bench and down in the minors that could increase those chances, hands down. Do you agree with that? Or are you saying the lineup that we're putting out there and trotting out there with a struggling Hayes, Mountcastle, Urias, and Odor is the best lineup for this team to take into a playoff? Be real.
I am, and I'm going to counter. I'm going to counter the statement with something that Drew actually pointed out last week when we were talking about Gunnar Henderson.
Okay.
Every level that Gunnar Henderson, you've kind of said this too before. Every level
Struggles at first, and then he gets it going.
Right.
So do it now. How much worse can it get?
Struggle any worse than Urias?
To my point, that's exactly where I was going.
Or Odor.
So if he struggles for
least
2 weeks, it's not much worse than what they've got now. And if he figures it out for that late run,
I get it, but what if we're talking we're playing a what if game, and that's where I say it's hard, right? Because all four of these guys have the major league experience.
I'm not saying any of us in here can predict the future.
No,
I just think with the way Gunnar Henderson's playing right now down in AAA, and the way Jordan Westberg is playing down right now in AAA, and with the movement and everything else that's going on in the minor leagues right now, bring them up now.
I get you.
And even if it's struggle bus for a week or two until they get it figured out and the nerves settle down, that gives them their best chance to win going into a playoff.
I get you. I'm torn because I worry about bringing those guys up and putting the pressure on them to have to perform, right? You have time.
Do you really like? So I'm asking this. I'm not saying it. I still don't feel like there's any pressure to do anything. I don't think any of us in here are going to be disappointed if they don't make the playoffs. I don't think any of us are going to be in here if they make the playoffs and lose in the first round. I don't think any of us are going to be disappointed if they make it past the first round and lose in the second round. You see where I'm going with this? We're not going to be disappointed unless they completely fall on their face and go on a 30-game losing streak from here on out. I think we're all going to be pretty damn happy with whatever happens with this team.
Yes, I agree. Would I like to see them in the playoffs, though? Yeah, and I get exactly what you're saying. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know. I can't agree and say that, yes, bringing those guys up immediately makes the team better, because we know that. But in fact, Henderson's not only the only one. Westberg has at times had some struggles. I don't know that you can say it immediately brings them up. What if you bring them up and that pushes you out? I know it's no better than these guys not performing. It still pushes you out.
You're not losing anything by replacing the guys that are struggling.
And I get that, but these guys could also bounce back out of it. That's my thing. right? They could bounce back out of it and get right back in it, and we're not having this conversation any longer.
Do you agree with me that Ryan Mountcastle looks like Ray Charles right now?
Oh, 100%. He's pulling his head out. 100%.
Okay.
He looks like a right-handed Chris Davis swinging a bat at times.
He is so far off. I don't understand it. I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's mental or what.
I think him and Hayes are letting their emotions get to the best of them. I said it. Hayes, when I was at the game last week, Hayes was letting it get to him, visibly coming out into the field. I watched him come out after the one strikeout. He came out. He threw one ball to Polanco. That was it.
Drew, I'm going to go to you. You got to be the tiebreaker here, right?
Oh, right. Thanks. Well, this asshole hasn't been here for a month.
I want your opinion. I know the Orioles obviously is kind of your bread and butter, right? So I want to know, do you think trotting out the lineup that they have right now gives them the best opportunity to make a playoff run, or is it bringing up the young guys and filling in the lineup?
So how crazy is it that, like,
that we're having this conversation? Yeah, it's
well,
real crazy.
It was already anyway. Preface that. Every Orioles segment.
Which is why, to your point, it is a win either way.
Every Orioles
that's what
segment,
I'm
we
saying.
should just go, how about these Orioles this year, just in general? But, like,
I can't. It's not. I don't think it's wide enough to show James.
I don't know why you're staring at me. Because I called you an
James
asshole?
is
No.
It was lovingly. I enjoy that barbecue book. I've already got
He
to
wants
it.
to see what side you're going to be on.
I'm ready for it.
So, how crazy is it though? Like it's all August 30th. Like, and we're sitting here and we're not saying like, man, how are they going to get through these games because of pitching?
Yeah, I
I'm
know.
saying it now because of offense, and it's just too streaky. Like, I mean, not that long ago, you fucking put up 15 runs against Boston. Like, you were scoring runs, and like it's cool that you beat Houston, but like
the guys that we're talking about specifically,
So that-
Mountcastle and
yeah.
Hayes have been struggling for a while.
Mountcastle, completely. I don't know what's going on. I can't even explain it. I don't have an opinion enough to be like, I don't know if this is a
Psychological
real rough
or
stretch.
what? Yeah.
It's just, you know what I mean? Like, next year, he could come out and be exactly like he was last year.
Right.
Hayes kind of seems like he hasn't been right since, one, the
wrist injury.
The wrist.
The
wrist
hand.
is my second point, but like he had the fucking cycle before that. And it seemed like, at least for us, we were like, holy shit, he's putting
Hayes was
this together.
taking off.
He's putting this together.
He was
This is
on
the
another
Hayes we
Mullins
expected.
last year
If he
kind of
stays
run in the
healthy,
beginning.
We always said if he stays healthy, because we thought when he's hurt, it's a catastrophic type of thing. Now it's just like, ever since he got hit, like it's both, and he might come up and hit a home run, but then like he's gone for like 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Odor, don't need to say him. Might even bring him up, but whatever. I don't really like Urias as much, so obviously I can't really harp anything on that. I just don't understand how you could think that maybe 2 weeks of struggling from like guys like Westberg and Henderson are going to be any worse when I could do the reverse. Like, it could still be like that could be the spark that sets them up.
Yep.
That could be the spark that, like, let's put it this way. If, say, it's Gunnar and Westberg coming up.
Yep.
Okay, so they're on the team. It's not Ryan Mountcastle and Austin Hayes being sent down or being benched. It's getting rid of Nevin, who's not really bringing much to the table. Or maybe pushing McKenna out, even though I kind of like McKenna.
Aruz or whatever.
Yeah, Aruz would be the guy. So, like, to me, it's like when you bring, like, those two up in particular, they're not replacing the other guys we're talking about. But what if you put them in a lineup and that gives them a little leeway that maybe Mountcastle sees a different pitch.
Right.
Or Hayes sees a different pitch. Or for fuck's sake, even little things that, like, I'm completely making up out of my mind literally as I'm talking. What if they get these kids up there and they go, fuck that, you're not stealing my spot here for the next couple of years. I'm going to go out here and earn my shit now. And it's that spark. I can't keep saying enough. I post it on Twitter about, like, every single day. Like, I don't get, like, a lot of people on Twitter. That's fucking Twitter. It's usually extreme negatives and that's it.
Appreciate it, David.
It's always the extremes. But, like, at some point, like, shit or get off the pot.
Yeah.
Like, you bringing them up now or today doesn't actually even fuck with their service time. Like, you still get that rookie year sensation chance. So, like, you're not even really manipulating anything at this point. It'd be a different story if it was, like, July 31st.
Right.
So I just don't – I don't understand how they can't not at least be some kind of spark because, like, even if they're not taking over, like I said, it has to, like, at least maybe, like, tell these guys, like, Mount Kessel and Hayes, like,
So
I got to step it up. Like, it's shit or get off the pot, for me.
Let me ask you a question, and then I'll throw it to James. The way that you were saying it, they should be up here tomorrow. To his point, we're 2 days away from not having to worry about that. And the roster's expanding. So in the back of my mind, I'm also kind of going, what the fuck are we arguing about?
But then
because they're going to be up here because they're going to be up here either way.
The question was, let's go back to what the question was we were starting with.
Yeah.
Are they winning a playoff team with this team?
Right.
Let's just say being a Fred are saying, no, maybe it's a little bit more in question. We're a little iffy on that. If they come, when is the first game? September 2nd is Friday when they're back home?
Yep.
Oh, cool. They got them back. But for what? Then you're risking exposing them too much for almost no reason. Like, that's not what September call-ups are for kind of anymore. Like, that's kind of like September call-ups at that point for teams in our position is necessarily depth, whereas shitty teams, it's to see what they have in minor leaguers.
Right.
I think we know what we have. You know what I mean? Like, granted, in the majors is a different story, but like,
and that's kind of my point with this whole thing.
It doesn't make
so. But to that argument, bringing them up now, you're risking them even more because if you do make a playoff run, now you're risking them in the playoffs, where it is knock them out, ground them. I don't give a fuck what you're doing. Things are hitting harder.
And
the pitches are coming faster. The adrenaline's running higher. There's a lot more factors into that. So go ahead, James.
Go ahead, James.
I just want to say, about 2 months ago, you guys were all attacking me in this. We shouldn't trade nobody. We need to get pieces. We're going to be in the playoff. I'm just excited about where we're at in general.
Right.
We're just, it's a little. It feels good because we're there. But this all brings back to next year what it's going to be like. Like we're going to have like the pieces, and we're going to be talking more about the good things. And we shouldn't take anything away from what they have done, but
absolutely,
there are some things because we all talk about is Brandon Hyde going to be here in the long run and all that. But some of the decision by like Odor being out there because he could turn better double plays than
Odor?
Vavra. Yeah, I get it, but some of these guys need to go. But Brandon Hyde is just playing these veteran guys to, I guess, pull along these young rookies and young guys coming up. I get it. I'm just excited. The feeling is so different at the yard. Watching games ain't boring where, like, you watch the first 2 innings and then you're like, all right, I'm going to go to bed.
There's 30,000 people in the stands.
Or
that's the difference, too.
Yeah, no,
so
I agree with you.
That's why I say it. Playoffs would be nice, but if it doesn't happen, look where we're at.
The other factor here is kind of what I alluded to a couple weeks ago, and just when it was just Joe and I. Shout out to Joe Carlozo again for being on the show that week. The Orioles are going to be in a very tough situation next year when they're going to have to make some decisions as to who they're keeping and who's not, right?
They're going to be tough situations in November.
That's what I'm saying. So why not bring these guys up who you know are going to be on the roster next year and see what you have at the major league level, because that'll help make those decisions a little easier. Because we talked about, like, I went through the entire thing with Joe. I'm like, we're set in so many positions, right? And we have so much depth now at certain positions that we don't know what that depth looks like because it's not quite here yet, right? That where, we talk about all the money that we're going to spend in free agency, and Elias talked about, next year we're going to be spending money. Where are you spending it, right? You're not spending it at catcher. You've got Mountcastle at first. You've got all these middle of the infield options already, right? Jorge Mateo has made a case for himself to stay on top of all these young guys coming up. You've got an outfield that's got at least 3 to 5 guys that are pretty much a lock. So where are you adding? Outside of starting pitching, where are you adding?
I think one of the things that people are underestimating is what's going to happen to lock up some of these contracts for long term.
Yeah, no, I said that too. That a lot of that money could be spent on like what the Braves have done, where they've spent money on young guys.
Look what Seattle just did with Rodriguez. Exactly. Why would you not think about doing that with with what is undisputed right now by many people, MLB's best catcher all around in
100%.
baseball right now.
100%.
Fernando Tatis.
No, I know that's like a Ronnie Stanley thing, but
Yeah.
it's that's where a lot of that money is going to be allocated. So my point in this is this can help you in two folds. Bringing them up now gives you an evaluation period to see where you're at ahead of time, and it gives you a couple of guys who are absolutely killing the ball and dominating at AAA options to fortify that lineup a little bit more to pair with this starting pitching that we just went on about how good this starting pitching has been lately. That gives you that best chance going into the playoffs. Not saying they can't win with what they've got right now, but getting rid of the dead weight. You already did it with Brett Phillips. Arauz is dead weight.
Yeah.
I understand, what Odor brings to the clubhouse, but he needs to be on the bench and he can be a rah-rah cheerleader because he does not need to be on the lineup.
He
and
can be
on
the
field.
occasional pinch hitter when you need him in the 12th.
exactly.
Yeah, he's so good. Like, he could be that defensive replacement in the 8th inning.
Exactly.
Getting that bad.
Exactly, right? So you bring those guys up,
Yeah.
and that just fortifies that lineup a little bit more.
Hey, by
That's
the
my
way,
point.
Hendo had 3 hits and a walk today, by the way.
Who did?
Henderson.
Hendo? I love
All
it.
right.
I love
All
it.
right.
So we talked about promotion season, man. Walk us
Yeah.
through some of these guys that are moving around.
I mean, we've heard about Colton Cowser. I know.
This fucking guy.
We've talked about
Call
it.
him up. Fuck Austin Hayes. Call this guy. I'm kidding.
Cowser, again, we've talked about how good he looks.
That would be
341.
some shit, though. That would be some really cool shit out of nowhere. Like, oh, yeah, tomorrow we're going to a Colton Cowser. I'd be like, what are we even doing?
But no, so you have guys like Colton Cowser and Joey Ortiz. They're going to Norfolk. Cowser, obviously, in 49 games, we talked about this before. It's gotten even better. In 49 games, he's batted 341. He's got 10 home runs. Last year, he was a 2021 first-round pick. This guy's making quick movements up
It's
the chain.
literally just him and one other guy from last year's draft class that have actually made it to AAA already.
Yeah.
Like, that's how fast this guy's moving.
And then you've got Ortiz in 47 games, hitting 355 with 11 home runs, and that's only since July with Bowie. So
yeah, he's another guy that once he got to Bowie, kind of like Henderson.
Something clicked.
He struggled a little bit in the beginning at Bowie, but then he got it figured out quickly. And like you said, over the
But
last 47
his numbers in Bowie have looked even better than they were in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
And it's going to just continue to get better in Norfolk.
and it's the guy that most people aren't even out there talking about.
Nope.
Yeah, he got hurt.
Under the radar.
Kind of shortchanged him a little bit. He got
Exactly.
hurt like early
Yeah.
July.
And then you've got another guy headed to Bowie, working up the chain, and Daryl Hernandez. He gets the call heading to Bowie, batting 305 with 5 home runs, 22 steals on 25 tries. Interesting number there. That's that speed going to work down in Aberdeen. That was 16 games in Aberdeen. So, again, all these guys, what are you seeing? You're seeing power, you're seeing speed, and you're seeing hitting for contact. That's what you're hearing with those numbers.
Yep.
And then the last one is on the pitching side. This year's second-round draft pick.
Not on the pitching side. He's an outfielder.
Outfielder, sorry. I'm thinking the tall dude. That's why.
Oh, gotcha.
From the Savannah Bananas. But no, Judd Fabian being moved from Delmarva to Aberdeen. He's, again, this year's second-round pick. He was drafted last year by the Red Sox. Turned it down, went back to Florida.
Exactly.
And played for the Gators.
This was the guy that Elias and the Orioles wanted last year, but the Red Sox sniped him. Yeah. And then he decided, his agent probably told him, like, hey, if you go back to Florida, you play good, you'll go up the draft board, be a first-round draft pick. Well, that he didn't have a great average last year, so he ended up going exactly where he went last year. This time the Orioles end up snapping him up. And quick story, had a chance, fortunate enough, to be down in Ocean City this past Thursday when a certain new Oriole, Jackson Holiday, made his debut with Delmarva.
Hell of a girl. I'm just kidding.
Hell of a 12-year-old girl. No, I got a chance to see him up close in person, along with Judd Fabian, along with Dylan Beavers, the second-round pick, which he is on my shit list right now.
Did he not throw you a ball?
No.
Or did you drop it when he threw it?
Let's just say he cost the Shorebirds the game.
Ooh.
So I'll paint the story real quick for you. Mind you, Jackson Holiday had a pretty decent game. He hit the ball hard a couple of times. He had one that was a ground rule double. I thought for sure was gone. Off the bat, it sounded great. Just dove down, hit the warning track, and went over the wall. It was dead center field. But Dylan Beavers, who in college was a corner outfield, they had him playing center field in this game. And Shorebirds were up by 1. Bottom of the 9th inning, they've got 2 outs. Pop fly goes out to shallow center field. Jackson Holiday runs back, and he's under the ball. His center fielder, Dylan Beavers, calls him off from behind. Jackson moves out of the way, Well, Beavers ends up having to dive for the ball. It hits off his glove, and it rolls away from him. They tie the game. It goes to extras, and the Shorebirds lose. But it just would have been a cool moment for all reasons, because Jackson got his first hit at Del Mar. It was in his first game. He would have had the last out. He was under it. There was no reason for the center fielder to call him off. I understand it's the center fielder's ball, but if you got to dive for it, you shouldn't be calling your shortstop off. So Dylan Beaver's on my shit list. But the guy, they made all these comparisons of his swing during the draft to like Christian Yelich and who was the other guy? Some other guy is a left-handed bat that had a sweet swing. I think offensively he'll be okay. I think defensively he needs to stay in a corner. He doesn't need to be a center fielder. Judd Fabian, he has got straight raw power. This dude, he's another one of those like
batting 407. I'd imagine it
beyond just the contact. Remember how I said last year or 2 years ago, whenever it was, Colby Mayo was my guy, and there's a difference in sound. Ryan Mountcastle a few years back, I said Ryan Mountcastle's got a ball.
Different, yeah.
It sounds different coming off his bat. Colby Mayo was that guy for me a couple years ago. Judd Fabian is that guy for me this year. The ball just sounds different coming off his bat. So there's a lot to be excited about with this kid.
Okay.
The struggle with him in college was his average. And right now, obviously down there, he's tearing it up, hitting 407. So if he's got that figured out, this kid is going to fly through the minor leagues quickly.
It's 407 with 8 doubles, 2 triples,
small
and 3
sample
home
size.
runs.
Very small sample size because he was, like I said, he was just drafted and just put into the system. But I like what I see.
He's also got a good eye, right? It's 14 walks to 13 Ks.
Yeah.
Right. That even he's taking some pitches, but he's also, he's getting on base. That's the difference here. So it's really good to see. The other big news coming out this week, Grayson Rodriguez, he'll make his first rehab start in Aberdeen on Thursday. Super exciting. 3 months to the day from his last start in Norfolk.
Yeah.
So excited to see him kind of get back. Maybe we see him as a late September call-up, or maybe they hang on to him and let him show up, get healthy, and show up to spring training and break camp. I think that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. All right, fellas, it's time for some Terps talk. It's time for some shell and sell. Ryan isn't here today. He's working. Yeah, he had a few days off, so now it's back to the grind before we go down Saturday, man, as the football season's set to kick off this weekend. Saturday against the University of Buffalo, 12 p.m. down at Capital One Field. A lot of us and your kids will be in attendance. A lot of these kids, the first time they've ever gone to a football game.
Wyatt's first football game ever. He's excited. He's been asking me, can we go get a shirt? Can we go get a shirt? So I got to go find him a Terps shirt.
Well, you should be taking them to a very good game for their first football experience. This should be a high-scoring game for the Terps. That's at least what I'm expecting.
When we took our
exactly. It's going to be the perfect experience for them. You're going to spoil them right out of the gates, right? They're going to expect that every time they go to a football game.
Don't go to an Iowa game. Trust me.
Oh, man.
But it's a Terps team, man, that's it's got a lot of hype around them, both nationally and locally, coming off a season where they finally got back to a bowl. Won big in New York at the Pinstripe Bowl that we were at. Finished 7-6 on the season, including that game.
Somebody I know got a nice jersey out of that game.
I did end up paid a pretty penny for it, but I got a real nice jersey.
It'll be worth for sure a lot more in this year's market with the Mickey Mantle card going for $12.6 million. Not saying Jarrett's jersey's going for that much, but it'll go up in value.
To that point, which is kind of cool. Rakim Jarrett.
Hey, if you get there $12 million though, like.
You gotta throw a little our way.
I got you. If I get $12 million, you're all good.
Just set me up for my golf bag. That's all I ask.
Oh, I got you. That $100 golf bag's not working out for you?
Right? I mean, it's nice. I appreciate the gifts, but,
All right. So here's the thing, though, with Rakim Jarrett, just because you brought it up, right? So, yes, he's changing his number from number 5 to number 1. He announced that 2 days ago. Obviously, there's been some really good Terp wide receivers to wear that number. DJ Moore, more importantly, Stephon Diggs wore that number. The lacrosse team, there's importance to the number 1. They give out the number 1 to the captain, to the leader, to the best player on the team. And I don't know if the football team is starting to adopt that, but they absolutely should.
Seems like it.
It seems that way. It was Marcus Fleming, but he was dismissed from the team because of, let's just say, some domestic issues. So he had some things going on. But now, so the number 1 became available. Now it's Rakim Jarrett's. So that whole number 5 jersey that I got from the Pinstripe Bowl is the last game used jersey that Rakim Jarrett will ever wear as a number 5. So that's kind of a cool
there you go. I mean,
thing to it as well.
$12 million.
Right. But with that, right, so again, the game is coming up this Saturday. Terps finally released their first depth chart of the year. So I wanted to talk a little bit about this because the depth chart with the Terps, they've always just kind of, it's never been of importance to them because they know who they've got, and who they're going to trot out there and all that stuff. So you kind of take the depth chart with a grain of salt. You don't really pay it a whole lot of mind.
It changes so much through the first several games,
and there's so many players, and there's going to be so much rotation around. And you got the whole who they're going to redshirt, who's not going to redshirt. So the limitation on how much they're going, how many games they can play.
That's the more important part because with those guys, you got to finesse which games are these guys going to play so we can keep them eligible.
Exactly. So we'll start with the running back position, right? Because we all know Leah is going to be the starting quarterback. There's no questions there. We don't need to
ask Ryan. He's going to be a Heisman winner.
Ryan put a little bit of money on it. He might be buying us all houses if that hits. We'll see.
Right?
But so I want to start with the running back position because obviously the quote-unquote vet of the room right now is Shalin Famatau, not listed on the depth chart. Now, he did get banged up in the spring game, so I don't know where he's at from an injury standpoint, but he's not listed on the depth chart. And right now you've got Roman Hemby, Middle River's finest, listed as RB number 1. And you got a couple of young guys in, Colby McDonald and Antoine Littleton, which, Ryan and I have talked about. This running back group has a real chance to be special. They're young, they're unproven, but there's a lot of talent there. So that's really exciting, not to mention they've got an incoming freshman in Roman Brown who is a man-child. This kid is going to be real special, but I'm leery if they decide to redshirt him, could that push him out the door and he ends up transferring somewhere else because he wants more playing time kind of thing? So I'm curious to see how much they use, Roman Brown this year because I think he's very crucial to this team's success for years to come.
Well, and to your point, I mean, they have to be able to solidify the run game if you want to do what we all expect they can potentially do and get Leah that Heisman that Ryan's putting the money on because you guys said it, and Ryan would be creaming his pants if he were here because he'd be talking about these guys that way. This wide receiver room, it's some guys coming back, and it's pretty damn stacked.
Absolutely stacked. I mean, they're all guys that we all know the names. You got Dante Demas coming back, looks fully healthy. He's going to be back at the X, and you got the new transfer in Jacob Copeland behind him. You got, obviously, Rakim Jarrett switching over to that number 1 jersey like we just talked about at the H. Freshman Octavian Smith. This is a guy that Ahmed talked a lot about on our last episode of Shell and Tell, that he's really, really stood out in practice. He was a highly recruited wide receiver out of Maryland, so he's a local guy that, I had a good bit of hope for. I just figured that with the amount of talent that this wide receiver core has, with the amount of depth that this wide receiver core has, I just didn't know how much he would play. But if Ahmed was a betting man, he'd be putting money on Octavian Smith having a nice role in this offense. So keep him on your lookout as well. Ja'Shawn Jones, the guy that was an absolute phenom his freshman year, who just had some really, really tough times over the last couple years with injuries. And they're not just little small nagging injuries. These are bad leg, knee injuries. He's back. He's healthy. He's going to be at the Z. Ty Felton, a Blazer behind him who can play in that slot. So this is by far, and this isn't just being a homer, this is by far the most talent that they've had at wide receiver in my lifetime.
Leah as a quarterback is in a put up or shut up type of year, which the money Ryan's putting on it is putting on that piece that he's going to be able to put this together. Because if you can't perform offensively and put up strong offensive numbers with this wide receiver room, and if you can figure out this run game with he has decent mobility, right? If you can't figure it out, you're going to just drop your draft stock is just going to drop off the table very quickly.
I mean, he did pretty damn good last year in his first full season, right? Broke all the records that we've talked about. So the key to Leah's success is going to be the offensive line. And this offensive line that he's got protecting him is back. Yeah. They're fully healthy. You got Jalen Duncan, who was projected to be a first or second round NFL draft pick last year, ends up coming back for another year, protecting his blind side. That's huge. Mason Lumford, a staple at left guard. Jahari Branch, the starting center. Spencer Anderson, right guard. Delmar Glaze, who stepped in a lot last year for Jalen Duncan, and they kind of rotated at left tackle, will be your starting right tackle. So, again, he's got a very good offensive line in front of him. Yeah. Well, and to that point, yes, it is an experienced offensive line. It's a group that's played together for a few years now, so that's great. But they've got a lot of really good talent, young talent behind them as well. So it's not just...
We don't have to worry about depth there either.
Yeah, it's not just a one, if they get one injury, you don't want to see anybody get hurt. Knock on wood, none of these guys get hurt. But there are some options below them that excite me as well for the future of this offensive line, which is great.
Well, and I know another thing that you guys have been excited about, one thing sticking with the offense for one last second, is the tight ends. We do see C.J. Dupree come back. He's listed as tight end 1. And then Corey Dyches, which I know you guys were both very high on last year. The way he was playing, you were talking at the end of the year about wanting to see him make a bigger leap this year, and be able to put up the numbers that we saw last year out of somebody else that wound up making his way to the NFL.
Doing all right up there in Tennessee.
Doing all right. So I just interested to get your take on the two of those guys come back and maybe any depth that you guys have heard of behind them.
Yeah, so this is one of those positions where you're looking at the depth chart, you're not really paying attention to who's tight end 1, who's tight end 2. You know what these guys' roles are going to be. C.J. Dupree is going to be primarily your blocking tight end. He has the ability, and I want to see him take the next step as a receiving tight end threat because he was able to do it in high school. But he's big, he's strong, he's physical, so he's going to be your primary blocker. Corey Dyches is definitely your receiving threat. He's one of those guys kind of like an Isaiah Likely where you can use him as a hybrid tight end, wide receiver. You can line him outside.
He can find space at times.
He can find space. He's going to have a major impact on this offense and the success of this offense as well, even, with all the wide receiver targets that he's going to have. So I was talking to Ryan about the other day. I'm like, man, they just got so many targets out there. I hope it doesn't become a diva fest where you got guys like, I need more targets. I need more balls.
Yeah.
If the common goal is winning football games and they're okay with, hey, today's Rack's day, today's Dante's day, today's Jacob's day, today's Corey's day. If they're good with that, then this team is going to put up serious points.
You need a team that's bought into each other for the future of each other, whether it's with the Terps or a future in the NFL.
Exactly.
You buy in and know that the guy next to you is going to be in the trenches with you when it comes down to it.
And they've got some other talent, too, at tight end behind them. LaRon Husbands and Weston Wolf, both guys that Chigakonkwo spoke pretty highly of in our interview that we did with him. So they've got depth there, too, at tight end. So, again, offensively, this team is set.
All right, so how about defensively? What are you looking at when you're looking at this defense? Because this is one of the things that I think last year, especially against some of the tougher Big Ten opponents, we saw some struggles at times with this defense. We saw some guys at times, like a Nick Cross, who obviously not here anymore, but he looked at times lost because he was having to cover some holes for other guys. What are you looking at here? What is your focus on this defense?
So there's a couple of areas of focus. There's a couple of areas of concern because, again, they're going to be able to score points. The big question is, can they prevent points? Can they stop points, right? There is a lot of talent on this defense, especially with the two deep, especially with the first string guys, really. There's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of guys, again, this is where you don't really pay too much attention to the depth chart because right now they've got the freshman phenom and Jayshawn Barham listed as the starting Mike linebacker. Talking to Ahmed, this is a kid that out of St. Francis, another local kid, right? He was the one that spurned South Carolina to come back to Maryland. This is a kid that can play inside or outside. Obviously, they're going to have a big need outside because Chop left Maryland, transferred, and went to Penn State. So there's just some shoes that he needs to fill. But right now on the depth chart, they've got him listed as the Mike starting linebacker. Ruben Hippolyte, obviously we know what he is and the hype around Ruben. And just year in, year out, he improves, and we need to see him take another
I'd like to see him
step.
take a big leap this year.
Exactly.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, he can fly up the boards because he's got all the physical traits. He's got all the football IQ. Just needs to put it all together and have a really big year. And I expect
He needs to use that football IQ to fly to the ball like he can.
Exactly.
And stop guys from getting. Sometimes he takes bad angles and can't. He lets them get too much space.
Right.
So if he can get and cut them off quickly, look at those angles, use that football IQ. Yeah, I think it could work out. From what I saw last year, when the games that I went to,
right.
I agree with you guys that he's a guy. He's got it all. He just needs to put it together.
Yeah, and right now he's pegged to be the will linebacker. The transfer that we got from West Virginia, Vondarius Cowan, this is a guy who has connections to Loxley in his Alabama days. He was with Alabama, didn't work out there, ended up transferring to West Virginia. West Virginia didn't utilize him to his strengths.
Yeah.
So he's going to be the Sam linebacker here. He's another guy that can get after the quarterback a little bit. So I'm hoping that with Loxley, with the tutelage here, with the opportunity, and him being used to his strengths, he'll have a big season.
Okay.
Cornerback and safety is where the big question marks come in with this defense. They got some guys coming back. Deontay Banks is going to be a big part of this secondary, on top of having a guy like Tarheeb Still, who has been a very good corner.
Looked good last year,
literally from day one as a freshman, last year as a sophomore. So expect him to have another big year. They got Jacorian Bennett back. So there's going to be a rotation of those three guys. You'll probably see Bennett and Still at the nickel position, kind of in and out. And whoever's playing the nickel, the other one will play the boundary. Yeah. Dante Banks is pretty much set on being a boundary corner.
Jacorian Bennett was the one that was at the Big Ten press day, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
He the way he was talking and just the way he presented himself, I feel like he's clearly in my eyes, he's one of the captains on that team. And to me, he's coming in and needing to fill the shoes in that secondary of the leader type role that Nick Cross was.
Yeah.
He's gonna need to step up and do that. And have his head on a swivel. It's going to have to be.
They've got some big shoes to fill. I mean, like talk about Nick Cross, losing Jordan Mosley. The safety position is going to be a big question mark. You've got Bo Braid and you've got Dante Trader, both guys that are going to be replacing those. So, listen, I think that this defense can be effective if there are no injuries. If this team stays healthy, I think this defense can hold its own in the Big Ten. The question comes into the depth, right? So if there are some injuries, which you can almost expect to happen, it happens every year to every team. Once we start getting into some of those second, third, fourth string guys, that's where I get a little bit worried with this team, and that's where I feel like defensively is going to be a challenge. But
all right,
I really like the starters on this unit.
Okay. Let's talk about the biggest question mark of them all that showed up somehow in the Pinstripe Bowl, but didn't show up the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Special teams, what are you looking at, man? I mean, I know we've got some names coming back and some guys that will pay attention or fill in different roles. What are you looking at? What are you paying attention here? Is there anybody that jumps out to you as needing to be a guy that keeps this special teams together and makes the difference?
Not just jumping out to me, but jumping out to Loxley as well. The kicking game, field goal kicking, is going to see a significant upgrade.
Okay.
Getting a guy like Chad Ryland transferring in, who was the top kicking transfer target on the market, essentially,
right,
this past offseason, is a big upgrade. I mean, this is a guy who was hitting 60, 65 yarders with ease. His accuracy is head over heels much better than Petrino's was. Petrino was a guy that, young as a freshman, looked good, looked promising, and then just kind of, I don't know if it got into his head or what happened, but he was struggle bus there for the last couple of years he was here. So we struggled. Anything inside 30, really beyond, I would say beyond 20 yards. Field goal kicking was always a question mark over the last couple of years. You can't have that. And, there were a lot of times last year where we could have used a field goal kicker because our offense would shut down once we got into the red zone. And we just didn't trust.
You weren't able to put the points on the board either.
We didn't trust having our kicker out there. So that's going to be a big upgrade for this unit. Kick return, that's obviously going to be a question mark too, because last year they put a lot of big names in harm's way. You know, they had Dante Demas back there on punt return, and that's ended up how he got his knee screwed up, right? You got guys out there this year. You got Deonte Banks, which I'm a little nervous about because, again, he's a crucial part to that secondary. Roman Hemby, who's also potential kick returner. You got Ja'Shawn Jones and Tareeb still doing the punt returner. So there's no denying the athletic ability and the athletic talent that they have. I just feel like this team has some speed and has some depth that maybe they should be using some other guys for kick return and punt return to just not put the risk on these guys. But you're all in. You got to listen. You got to improve on last year's.
To your point, you got to put the best chance that you have out there. And some of these guys, it's putting them in risk.
You can't live in fear.
It's risk versus reward too with this side of the team. So, all right, so let's move to this Saturday's game, which is against Buffalo. So, you know, when you're looking at Buffalo, it's a team that a lot of people are sitting here going, all right, it should be a pretty much slam dunk, right?
Yeah.
What do you look at when you're looking at Buffalo? Do they have any threats that you're paying attention to or that you're watching that could make a big impact in this game? Or do you think this is a slam dunk situation?
So to your point, Terps are favored by just under 24 points. 23.5 was the last time I looked at the spread. Buffalo finished, I think, 4-8 last year. So as you said, this should be a walk in the park game for the Terps, right? But Buffalo improved a lot over last year. I mean, they've got a solid defense, especially up front. They can absolutely get after the quarterback. They've got a star and a linebacker, James Patterson. He's a guy you definitely want to keep an eye on. Probably going to be one of the best linebackers I think the Terps will face this year.
Really?
So, yeah, even at a small school at Buffalo, this guy's the real deal. They did add in some transfers from the secondary, but they're going to have their hands full, though. I mean, like I said, the talent that this Terps team has at wide receiver and tight end, it's going to pose a challenge. The Terps will score quite a bit in this game, but offensively, they don't really have a whole lot that they can really hang their hat on. I mean, they've got a decent run game, so they can move the chains. They can keep drives going. Quarterback isn't very impressive to me. The skill positions, wide receiver and whatnot, they don't really have a whole lot of threat. I don't think they're going to put up a ton of points in this game. But
so it sounds like for the Terps, the biggest thing for this game is don't let up and don't play down.
Yeah,
you can't play down to this team, and if you
Get into rhythm.
Don't let off the gas.
Get into rhythm. So in this game, a couple of things. The obvious, stay healthy. I want to see them stay healthy.
Priority level 1.
First and foremost. You got to limit the penalties. That was a problem last year. It's been a problem over the last couple of years. You got to play clean football. You don't want to shoot yourself in the foot. So I want to see that they've made improvement on that they're disciplined versus what they were last year. I want to see what this young running back rotation looks like. You know, what can the 3-headed monster or even the 4-headed monster, if Hemby gets in this game, what does that look like? That's one of the things that's always made Maryland successful at the running back position. It's never been about one guy. Yeah. They've always had a rotation.
Running back by committee.
Yeah, they've always had a rotation of guys, right? Keep them fresh, keep new bodies out on the field.
And one guy eventually towards the end of the year starts to stand out. I mean, we've talked about guys, you know, like a McFarland that stood out and wound up in the NFL.
Right.
So it works out. Yeah, it's good take.
Yeah.
Good take for sure.
And then I think this wide receiver core is going to have some big play opportunities against this secondary. So I want to see what that looks like too. You know, does Dante Demas truly look like Dante of old? Does he look like he's fully back to what he was? I mean, what you see in practice and what you see on these camp clips that they put out there, all looks good. And everything we've heard from Ahmed looks good.
How is he with game speed? This is going to be the key.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see. I would like to see the kicker get a few long opportunities just to see it in person. You hear about it. You see the practice videos, but can he do it in a game with the pressure on him? I want to see the team give him that opportunity because there's going to be some games later in this year when you're playing against the thick of the Big Ten Conference, right, where you're going to need him
put up or shut up
to come in a 40 or 50-yard field goal to put points on the board in these closer games. So I want to see him to be able to do it.
And the kicker there is you're going to need that line to protect him and give him the time to be able to kick those because that's been a struggle of theirs in the past as well. It's not just that the kicker couldn't get there. Sometimes the kicker didn't have the time to kick it.
Exactly.
So you got to do what it takes to give him the time to kick the ball, especially if you're going to ask him to come in and kick it 40, 45, 50 yards. Yeah, he needs the time. They have to. They cannot let everybody bull rush them and just run them over at time like they did at times last year.
Exactly. And then I want to see if this defense, our defense, can make stops on third down. Can we get after the quarterback? Can we get pressure? The defensive line is basically returning everybody from last year, so we already kind of know what that looks like. The big question is around the edges. Can they seal the edges? And then can they get after the quarterback? So that's defensively what I'm going to be watching for this game.
So I'm going to put your feet to the fire here, buddy. I want your prediction for this Saturday's game. Terps, Buffalo.
I was going to save this for the next episode of Shell and Tell, but I'm sure Ryan will probably cut this and post it as an episode anyway. So I'm going to go Terps. This isn't Homer. I mean, again, this is a game we talked about. This is a game that they absolutely should win. I do think that Talia will light up the scoreboard. Defensively, like I said, I think this team can hold their own against Buffalo. I think the Terps win 42-13. So they cover the spread.
Okay. I don't hate that. I probably would. I mean, from everything that I've been reading, and I didn't get into this nearly as deeply as you and Ryan do, for sure. But I'm going to be paying attention to it now between now and Saturday, now that I know that I'm going. I just made that decision yesterday. Right. But so for me, if I'm going to give a quick prediction, it's probably not going to be far off. I'll say that they'll be able to put up more points with all the weapons that they have.
Okay.
I'm going to say they're going to win this 49-10.
49-10. I like it. I'll be happy either way.
I will. A win is a win. Exactly. That's what it is.
No rules. No boundaries. 2 topics. 30 seconds each. It's time for the 2-minute warning.
All right, guys, it's time for the 2-minute warning.
I was on time with my gang signs this week.
Right. I forgot what it's like to do 3 segments. It's been a while since we've done 3 segments.
It's been a while since the Orioles have been rolling.
2 seconds.
It's late season.
For some reason, you just kind of cut out.
Yeah.
Did I cut out?
Yeah, your thing died.
My thing died.
Your mic or something. I can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
We hear your regular voice.
How about
Can you hear me now?
They could, yes, they could hear. It was I
he accidentally hit the.
Yeah, they could hear. It was just you two that couldn't hear.
Hey, freaking me out!
Amateur hour.
Freak them out, making them think they're deaf.
Right.
All right, Drew, you reading?
Yeah.
All right.
Dumbed us down for Fred, apparently.
All right, James, you got the button over there?
Yep.
All right, James got the button.
Which pro athlete would you like to see play a superhero or villain in a comic book film, and what character?
Oh, man.
Oof. I will go. Like, is it like current or?
You can come up with whatever you hit your mind there, Scott. It's all self-explanatory.
This is tough. Ed Reed is the Flash.
There you go. I don't know
Ed
about
Reed
that.
is the Flash.
It's the one thing. His speed, finding and reading things.
Ed Reed could be Mr. Fantastic because he stretches all over the field.
All right, fair enough. All right, there you go. All right, your turn, Fred. You had more time to think about it. Let's go.
I am so bad with this. Also, I am not a comic book guy, so I don't know many of the comic book guys. I'll go Daniel Filele as the Juggernaut. I'm the Juggernaut, bitch. He's 400 pounds, right? He's the only guy I can come up with is big.
Okay.
Besides the Oriole Bird and Poe, shout out Poe, hope you're doing better. Which
Rest
mascot
easy, buddy.
is your favorite from any sport?
Favorite mascot from any sport.
Don't say what I'm gonna go with. God damn it.
For me,
Don't do it.
the Philly Fanatic.
God damn it! It's the only other mascot I knew by his name. I'm like, God damn it. All right.
Like, I think the Philly Fanatic has been entertaining for years. The shticks that he does.
I don't even know what he is.
Always putting new things in.
But the belly thing, I love that about
Nobody
him.
knows what he is.
Nobody knows what he is. That's
is.
the point. But no, I love it. I think he's a great character. The Phillies do a great job with marketing him and everything that he does. So that's where I'm gonna go.
Yeah, man. I was sitting here looking at the question, and I was Philly Fanatic was my guy too. I have a new respect for the Brewers mascot, and I always say that because
Yes.
Did you see the reporter that went down the slide?
No, the Brewers mascot.
Oh, that idiot. How did he have south.
He broke ribs. He broke a wrist. He broke all kinds of shit going down that slide.
Yeah, the Brewers mascot that goes down the slide.
I have a whole new respect for that guy going down that slide now.
Every day he puts his life at risk.
Exactly.
All right, Fred, take us out of here, buddy.
All right, man. We appreciate you guys tuning in as always. As Scott has said earlier, if you haven't done so already, make sure you go down, follow the link in the description, sign up for that Pick'em League that we have. It's free to play, free to enter. It gives you a chance at a Birdland BS prize pack, and it gives you a chance at bragging rights to say you beat us. More importantly, exactly. We'll be back next Tuesday night at 7:30 as always. If you haven't done so already, make sure you're following us on all the platforms: Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all the audio podcast platforms of your choice. Everything is at Birdland BS.
Drop reviews too. It helps
us for
big
sure.
time.
If you want to follow us individually, I like to post a lot on Twitter. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow me at FredBLBS. You can follow Scott at ScottBLBS. You can follow James over there at JamesBond2032. You can follow Drew at Drew27N. Drew likes to put a lot of comments on there, retweet things, so he's always talking Orioles on there.
I used to never do it.
I know, you never did anything on Twitter.
And don't forget, though, for those of you that have continued to ask us about supporting the show, just check out bio.link /BirdlandBS. You can get links to all the stuff that Fred was just talking about, but there is that donation spot for those of you that have asked. We keep getting it every once in a while, so we make sure we put it out there for you guys. But more importantly, it's just follow, subscribe, and be a part of the show. When we go live, we've gotten plenty of comments from people that you guys don't comment. Comment.
Yeah, we love all the comments for sure. If you want more Terps coverage, and if you haven't done so already, make sure you're following Shell and Tell everywhere. Ryan just did an offensive line and defensive line breakdown with former Terp Ellis McKinney. It's a really good show, so make sure you check out that latest episode. We're going to put another episode together prior to this weekend, so be on the lookout for that. For myself, Scott, James, Drew, Ryan, who's at work, we'll see you guys next week. See ya. See ya. Time.
It's last call for alcohol.
You know what I'm doing with my hands right now.
It's time for the after party. There we go. Get it out. Get it out, Fred.
Been a long show. It's almost 10 o'clock, man. Golly, that extra segment really throws it off.
2.5 hour show. Yeah. I mean, well, it's a lot to talk about because there's a lot of relevant stuff going on.
Let's not bury the lead. Let's go where we left off of. How the fuck did that guy die, basically, sliding a slide?
Yeah, so he slid down and
I thought it was a joke. When I saw all the he broke ribs, he broke a wrist,
It legit happened.
I watched the video and Pat McAfee.
Watch his arm get pinned back there.
I could get the arm. How'd you break ribs?
Because of the arm.
The arm something else too. It was like his neck was hurting or something too.
You could tell that guy never played contact sports.
That guy never rode a slide in his life.
Never.
My kids to go down slides worse than that. They don't get hurt.
To respect that though, I mean the space between when you cut off the slide and when you hit the wall is 5 feet.
Zero respect.
Alex says, I don't understand why. Oh, I can't see it now, James.
I got it.
I don't understand why we haven't called more of the guys up. We obviously can't tank because of our record, so we might as well put the best lineup out there.
Talk about the Orioles.
Yeah, tanking isn't even a thing at this point, Alex. I really believe that this organization is behind winning now. I mean, they've embraced the fact that they're in a playoff run. I question why Gunnar and Westberg aren't here yet. Once I started seeing some of the movement with Cowser coming up and, you
thought it was going to happen.
I assumed it would happen, especially for this Cleveland series.
One of the AAA outfielders hit the IL.
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. We'll see what happens. I do think, to my point earlier, that if you really want to go all in, Gunnar Henderson and Westberg, having them as options on your major league roster, hands down, give you a better chance at a playoff run than having an Aruz and having a fucking.
I think they just called DJ back up.
Yo,
I
he gets
will-
caught up on the first.
I will throw a brick
I
through
quit
Mike
to see
Elias's window in the warehouse.
The big
if
call-ups for
fucking-
Richie Martin and DJ Stewart. I quit.
I will quit.
Screw the
I
brick
quit.
into the warehouse. I
not
know where he
coming to a
sits behind
Birdland
home
show
plate.
the rest
I
of
will
the
go
summer.
find his ass.
If DJ Stewart's on his team in September, I ain't coming back this month, boys.
I will
promise.
be done.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited for this weekend. My, side note, and I was talking about this before, is my dad actually gets to deliver the game ball. I might be able to actually go out there too.
That's
kind of
cool,
cool.
You've had
Unfortunately,
a couple of cool incidents. I mean, you got to do the batting practice on the field.
yeah, that was cool. It's all some of the benefits of being a Birdland member and being able to cash in on the points and stuff like that.
So-
but it's
Yeah,
that.
these guys paying 1992 pricing don't get to do any of that.
Yeah, no. The other thing that comes into play. Shut the
Sorry,
fuck.
I had to do it. That was a layup. You fucking set it on a tee. I had to hit it.
Oh my god. Well, at least it's better than you hitting a driver off the tee.
Remember how upset he got at Ryan last year? What happened?
Digs deep.
I'm fucking with his golf game. He made the tee reference. He put it up on a tee for me. Let's go. No,
You
but
got a hell of a drive.
The other,
Hey,
the other thing that
James,
was,
I joined the house club the other day. I didn't tell you this. So we went, Ryan and I got a chance to go down to Ocean City and play a couple of courses down there. And one of the courses we played at Rum Point, which is absolutely beautiful. It was a
I've
great
heard
course.
that. I haven't played it yet. I would love to.
It's definitely a must play if you're down in Ocean City. It's expensive, but it's a great course. We played this other course called Plantation Lakes, which is a beautiful course.
I
and
got
it's
the notifications.
It's a super challenging course, though. Like that, the elevation changes.
Worse than Pilgrim Oaks as far as elevation changes?
It's forced. It's fake.
Okay.
But yes,
Oh,
the
man, those
greens,
elevations of
bro,
Pilgrims,
the
though, boy.
greens were insane. There was one green. I kid you not. The valley in the middle of the green was so deep that if you were in the middle of that valley and I was back on the fairway, I wouldn't be able to see you. Like that's how deep this on a green, right?
Nice.
So anyway, there were a lot of this golf course is being developed around. Like there's all these new like $500,000 townhouses and really nice like single family homes being built around this course. So the front nine is beautiful, water and all that stuff. Back nine is all these houses, right?
So there's a possibility I could hit him.
Oh, bro, you'd have hit 10 houses. But I fucking pegged one, dude. I mean, the fairway was pretty fucking wide open. And I thought, here I am. I'm lined up. I'm going to, nail this thing down the center of the drive. I've been hitting pretty decent drives. Man, I pulled this thing left. As soon as it went off, I was like, oh, shit. And you just saw it fucking right in the middle of this guy's roof. Pow! And bounce back off, man. I'm like, but that's what you sign up for,
Yeah.
buying a house right there on a golf course.
That's why I've always wondered how long when you buy, especially when it's new construction around one.
Brand new construction.
I sit there and I go, so how long does it take you before you realize you need plexiglass windows?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
wonder if they put different windows in the back.
I'm sure they do.
They have to. I mean, if they didn't,
have
I'd be
to.
paying for it because
There's no way you would back up to a golf course that close. I'm talking, these houses were close.
know.
Yeah.
And not have some sort of plexiglass windows. But anyway, it was still a beautiful course. And if you are down there in Ocean City, you should play Plantation Lakes because with all the development that's going on this course, I got a feeling eventually it's going to be a private course for only the people that live in that neighborhood. So you won't be
Get
able
in
to
while you
play
can.
it. Yeah, get
Yeah.
in while you can. It's beautiful.
Yeah, I think going back to baseball for a second, I
Sorry.
think it's
I don't even know how I did that. Fucking squirrel.
It's pretty cool because they also they contacted my dad late with like everything they need because you have to have proof of vaccination and all this other crap, and you have to provide it ahead of time. Well, they just contacted him Monday, and he's like,
Better late than ever.
like he's like, what the hell? 5 days? Like that's all you notice you're giving me, and like they're like, we need it tomorrow. Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
So he
That to
called
me
me. He's
sounds
like,
like somebody backed out and they're like, hey, we need
well,
you to
but
fill in.
he had already had it booked. It's been booked for months.
Oh, okay. I guess.
So he was on top of it. He was just waiting for them to, like, he kept calling his guy and saying, hey, where's that? He's like, I'll have to find out what's going on with it. They usually send it out, a few weeks ahead of time, and then 5 days ahead of time. So they actually are also, my dad's got to find out. I got to get answers. They also said that they were going to try to work with the whole party. So not just like me and my dad, but Wyatt's going to the game to be on the field for like get in the stadium early and be on the field for batting practice.
That's cool.
So that'll be cool because Wyatt loves seeing stuff like that. So and I think it'll be pretty cool. That's one of the things that we were talking about. We're like, well, are they going to require proof of vaccination for him to get on there? Like he's not up to date right now.
Right.
So it's like, what the hell?
I need to know.
Well, it's also, but like, what the hell's the difference of him standing on the dirt
versus being in the stands
at the net?
Right.
Like, there's no difference. It's frustrating.
It's
but
all political.
Yeah, it is. But anyway,
It's a whole nother
it's
thing.
a pretty cool scenario. So I'm excited for that. And then, I have to. So I will not be here next week for next week's show. I have to travel all the way out to Oregon, Portland, Oregon for work for my full-time job. So these guys will be here.
We'll hold it down.
You guys will hold it down. I know you will.
Will you be able to call in at all?
It's going to depend. I'm going out there with like 5 people that I have to train. So I might have to like take them out to dinner and stuff or something.
We got
afterwards,
a special guest on next week's show, a familiar voice to those that have been listening to Birdland BS for a very long time.
So we'll figure. It might get pushed. We'll see.
Yeah.
I need to talk with that person. But either way, there might be another voice coming on the show next week, calling in.
Yeah.
So we'll kind of see. But yeah, there's hopefully we'll have a nice special guest for everybody within the next 2 weeks. I'd like to be here for it, but if I can't be, we're still going to make it work. So we'll figure it all out, and you guys will find out because we'll announce it.
All right, it's after 10. Time for bed. I'll see you guys. We'll see you guys next week.
Fred's old and tired. Let's go.
3 of us will see you guys next week. See you guys.
See ya.